Greetings. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. Today we're going to continue our study on the mystical Qabalah. This is chapter 16, and we will be going over the Sephra known as Hakma. Hakma comes immediately after Kether. And a good way to think of this is as part of a triad, Kether, Hakma, and Bina. They're best understood together as a single unit. And in this particular case, Kether can be thought of as balance, harmony, stabilization. Kether is the origin point, and it's completely undifferentiated. And what that means is that there's no difference between anything when it comes to Kether. Now, when we get to the level of Hakma, because these are states of existence, when we get to the level of Hakma, what we're dealing with is that harmony and that balance becoming upset, disturbed. And what happens is that now that an imbalance has been caused, it seeks to restore its harmony again. So this is where we get Bina. Bina is when this balance is somewhat restored. But because the perfect harmony has been upset, it can never be perfect again unless it's at the state of Kether. So what we find is that because the state of Bina is imperfect, the process of trying to harmonize itself continues. Kether is best thought of as complete, undifferentiated perfection. For those of you who've studied Vedic philosophy, you can think of Mula Prakriti, Prakriti at the state of ultimate harmony, where all the gunas are completely balanced. Hakma is best thought of as a channel of change, not a receptacle of change, right? So Hakma is the universe in the state of flux. Bina is the universe in a state of imperfect harmony. And this is the matrix as we have it today. These things are all conceptual and extremely high level. But the reason that we work to understand these things is so that we can have a better background of what we're working with when it comes to spiritual stuff. So we're going to get into Hakma. Welcome, greetings. I appreciate all of you for being here. Good evening, Sunshine Chick. Peace first. Shaylet, what's up, what's up? Justin Hamilton, peace, peace. Society Ejects, peace, my brother. Seer Sue 888, peace. WVT, good to see you. Phoenix Wolfette, peace, peace. Kevin Wise, greetings, greetings. Mike's Art, what's up, what's up? Let me know if the music is too loud, because I can always turn it down before we begin the reading. Nicole Berkeley, good to see you, peace. Again, let me know about the volume. I know on my other phone it picks up pretty well, but with this one, maybe not so much. Danielle Samuel, peace. Romeo Corleone, peace. El Diablo Negro, peace. The Balance 6'9", peace. Romanese 7'7", peace. Hollow Vegeta, good to see you. Framestar Films, peace, peace. All right, well, if the volume is great, then we're going to go ahead and jump into it. I heard no complaints. A little bit of Sith meditation here. I love this stuff. Cheesy as it may sound, I find it quite effective. Quite effective. All right. get down to business. Let's get down to business. Latropa, good evening. Glad to have you here. I've been doing some amazing rituals, of course, because I wouldn't waste my time on anything less than amazing. And I don't know, I guess I'll say I'm pretty proud of myself. I have actually found the art and science of the mental plane, and I've been working heavily with that art and science of the mental plane. And the types of change and potential that I've found here so far is incredible. And it has a lot to do with everything I've been talking about as far as belief and language and everything like that. Because a lot of the obstacles and questions that we have, they're framed around our present state of information. So what I'm saying here is, if you don't have all the data, there's no possible way you can understand everything. Yet, that's what we try to do, understand everything. There's a person who inboxed me, and I'll get back to them after this live stream because I just got the message, but he was just basically asking the question, how can we trust what's been written because it's just been written by people? Nobody knows the full truth, especially if everything comes from antiquity. Right, he was asking the question, how can we just trust what somebody wrote? But, even that question there is framed by his current level of understanding. You know what I'm saying? If you have a current level of understanding that is limited, you're not going to be able to answer some of these questions you have. But more on that later. Right now, we're dealing with Hakma, the second Sephirah. So let's begin. Let's get it cracking. Chapter 16, Hakma, the second Sephirah. Title, Hakma, Wisdom. Magical image, a bearded male figure. Situation on the tree, at the head of the Pillar of Mercy in the supernal triangle. Let me adjust this camera. I thought I was going to lay down, but now I'm more comfortable sitting like this. So I'm going to stack some books underneath this phone. CJ, greetings. Kevros SS God, peace. The Electric Rose, greetings. Okay, this is a little better. All right. The situation on the tree is at the head of the Pillar of Mercy in the supernal triangle. The Yetzeratic text, the second path is called the Illuminating Intelligence. It is the crown of creation, the splendor of unity, equaling it. It is exalted above every head, and is named by Kabbalists the second glory. Titles given to Hakma: Power of Yetzera, Av Abba, the supernal father, Tetragrammaton, the Yod of Tetragrammaton. Who here knows what Yetzera is? Or I should say, who is familiar with that phrase? Atropa says, I just did my vanilla Coke sweet tangerine herbal icy drink. I cracked mine 10 minutes ago. Okay, listening now. Interesting. I started this video 10 minutes ago. Hollow Vegeta and Kevros SS God. Hey, listen, maybe you guys can work together to find some better techniques that you can use to mutually progress. Remember what Vegeta learned about Jiren. Jiren was not out here just recklessly fighting with anger. Jiren was meditating the entire time, all the way up until the point that it was time to fight. That changed Vegeta's life. That changed his life. In the new movie, he was fixated on that. If Vegeta finds extreme importance in the art and practice of meditation, I think we all can. Unicorn Universe, peace. Alright, thank you for that, Mike's art. Yetzera. The god name associated with Hakma is Jehovah. The archangel associated with Hakma is Raziel, secret or herald of God, secret of God, herald of God. For good information on the archangel Raziel, I would recommend that you go back to the book Ladder of Lights by William G. Gray and read the chapter that he has on Hakma and read about what he says about the world of Yetzera, the world of Bria. The order of angels associated with Hakma is the Ophanim, the wheels. Now, in popular culture, people are going to say biblically accurate angels, and they're going to be these wheels with all these eyes. Kind of like this. But that image that these people have in the mainstream, they're mostly getting that from the Ophanim, which are the archangels associated with Hakma. The angels associated with Hakma. The mundane chakra is the Mazaloth, the zodiac. Mazaloth is another word for the zodiac. Spiritual experience, the vision of God face to face. The virtue dealing with Hakma is devotion, and as you can see, there's no vice. And as we've learned earlier, there are not going to be any vices associated with the upper triad of the tree. Thank you, Sunshine Chick. Greetings, Stray Panther. Thank you. Hey guys, if you appreciate this content, go ahead and hit the like button. Not only is it free, but it makes me feel great. And it also has the added bonus of making YouTube put my videos into a category of videos that are worth watching. Engagement. So the symbol associated with Hakma is the lingam, the phallus. And that's a proper word for penis. The yod of Tetragrammaton, the inner robe of glory, the standing stone. The standing stone, the tower, the uplifted rod of power, the straight line. Tarot cards associated with Hakma, they're going to be all the twos, right? So the Two of Wands means dominion. The Two of Cups represents love. The Two of Swords represents peace, restored. The Two of Pentacles represents harmonious change. So if you got your tarot cards, you can lay out all your twos and imprint it within your memory that the twos are going to be associated with Hakma. And according to Dion Fortune and her private studies, these are the representatives of those particular cards. Al-Dicky, peace, bro. The color in Atziluth is pure soft blue. The color in Bria, which is the world that we know Hakma in, is gray. The color in Yetzera is pearl gray, iridescent, and the color of Hakma in Asaya is white, flecked with red, blue, and yellow. All right. So let's get into it here. Every phase of evolution commences by being in a state of unstable force, and proceeds through organization to equilibrium. Equilibrium having been achieved, no further development is possible without once more oversetting the stability and passing through a phase of contending forces. As we have already seen in Kether, Kether is the point of formulated in the void. According to Euclid's definition, a point has position but no dimensions. If, however, a point may be conceived of as extending through space, it becomes a line, right? If you take a point and you extend it through space, it is no longer just a point, it's now a line. The nature of the organization and evolution of the three supernals is so remote from our experience that we can only conceive of them symbolically. But if we conceive of the primordial point, which is Kether, as being extended into the line, which is Hakma, we shall have as adequate a symbolic representation as we may hope to achieve at our present state of understanding. Make sense? Shango, peace. Good to see you. So just real quick, what she's really talking about here is the fact that we come to an understanding of Kether as a point of equilibrium. But once equilibrium is achieved, she says here, no further development is possible, right? If we got an equilibrium, there is no evolution because everything is balanced. So she said it's not possible without once more oversetting the stability and passing through a phase of contending forces. So this is when that point of Kether starts to shift and move. And keep in mind here, don't forget what we learned all year long in the previous books about yoga, written by Swami Niranjan Ananda Saraswati. And he would describe to us about Prakriti, which is the matrix, Mother Earth, matter, the realm of existence. Now there is a state of existence that is in perfect harmony. We call her Mula Prakriti. That is the potentiality of the material plane. When I say Prakriti, that's also synonymous with the word the matrix. That's also synonymous with Mother Nature. Hell, it's also synonymous with the demiurge. But basically, there's a high level of Prakriti that is completely balanced. It's a dimension, and it is seen through a certain perspective. Just like everything here is Kether from a certain angle. But if you're not in the angle of Kether, then you're going to see the imbalance, which is the becoming. Now that imbalance and that becoming is Hakma. That's when that imbalance is offset and it's striving to seek equilibrium again. So Hakma is not a state of balance whatsoever. It is a state of flux and change and movement. She says here that it's passing through a phase of contending forces. That's what we're dealing with in Hakma. So because this state of existence is beyond our comprehension in these human bodies, the best symbols we have for Kether is a point in space. And as she says here, a point, it doesn't have position. No, it has position, but it doesn't have dimension. So you can locate a point, but there's absolutely no way to know how big or how small it is. We can locate where it is, but that's about all we can locate. Likewise with Kether. And I want you to think here for a moment, and it might even help to close your eyes, but I'll give you a brief way to visualize this here. If you close your eyes, then you can begin to think of a yin-yang. Think of that yin-yang symbol, which is the circle, and it's got the black and the white, right? Now, I want you to think about this and pay attention to the black half with the white dot. Understand that black half, we could say, represents consciousness, the endless void, and the white dot would represent Prakriti, right? So we look at the other half, which is the white space and the black dot. And what we're looking at here is the totality of Prakriti, the totality of matter and nature and existence, but there's a tiny black dot of consciousness. So within Prakriti, within matter, within nature, within the matrix, there is a small representative of God, of consciousness, of the unlimited, of the divine. There's a small point within Prakriti. Now, again, it has location, but it does not have dimension. And that small dot of soul exists within matter. But if you flip it around and look on the other side, you'll see that the infinite void, somewhere within the infinite void is a dot, and this is what we know of as the matrix. You could also imagine that, say that we've got the endless blackness of space, and then planet Earth is just sitting there randomly. But there's nothing beyond Earth except for endless void. So if you look at that black half of the yin-yang with the white dot, imagine that that black space within there would be consciousness, Purusha, soul. And I want you to remove all the lines that shape that slice. And imagine that the blackness goes on forever. That's consciousness. And that small white dot is Prakriti. That small white dot is Kether. And within that small white dot is the rest of the tree, is the four worlds, is everything that we can ever know. It's knowing, it's everything to be known. But consciousness is infinite, far beyond the constraints of existence. If you did that exercise, good for you. If not, well, good for you. Let's continue. Verse number 2. This fourth flowing energy, represented by the straight line or the uplifted rod of power, is essentially dynamic. It is, in fact, the primary dynamism, for we cannot conceive the crystallization of Kether in space as a dynamic process. It partakes, rather, of a staticism, of the limiting of the formless and free in the bonds of form, tenuous as that form may be in our eyes. I actually did have a note written on that one. Hala Vegeta says, I feel like all the spheres occupy the same space, just different levels of comprehension or perception. You're absolutely right. And in a way, that's what I described with that little visualization there. In infinite space, all you're going to see is Kether. All you're going to see is Mula Prakriti. But once you get closer and closer to Kether, or closer to Mula Prakriti, you're going to begin to see it at a different angle. So it's going to appear to move. It's going to appear to change. It's going to appear to be something that it's not, which is what we call the illusion. So when you're inside of the matrix, when you're inside Kether, when you're inside matter, you're going to see it from a different angle. And that's why it starts to become an illusion. So Hakma represents active dynamic power. Kether represents static potential. Hakma is a center of active power, and that is shown in those twos of the tarot cards up here, right? Activated transformation, dominion, love, peace restored, harmonious change. That's what we're dealing with the twos of Hakma. And another thing to keep in mind about verse number 1 is that each Sephirah on the tree is a stage of the point shape evolution. Because remember, she said that Kether was the point and how it was still and uncharacteristic. Well, each level of the tree represents the evolution of that point, right? So the only possible change that can come after a point is another point, and you connect those two, and that's a line. Right? So those two Sephirah connect and they build a new shape. That's Kether and Hakma. If you add the third point, which would be Bina, number 3, that would make the triangle. If you add a fourth point, that makes a square, and that's Chesed. Right? You add a fifth point, that makes a pentagram. That's Gibura. You add a sixth point, that makes a hexagram or a hexagon. That's Tifereth. Right? And of course, if you take that hexagram, and if you take the 3D shape of it, which would be a cube, if you unfold that cube, what do you get? You get a cross. So it's no mystery that Tifereth is associated with the cross and Christ. And it's no mystery that these shapes are associated with the different Sephirah. It's not simply that let's just pick a 5-pointed shape, and that's Gibura, and a 3-pointed shape, and that's Bina. We're talking about evolution here. So we're going from 1 point to 2, that's a line, Hakma. Add another point, that's 3, Bina. right? And so on and so forth. Mariah Magdalene, peace. Naturally natured, good evening. So speaking of threes, verse number 3. The limits of the organization of such a form having been reached, the ever-inflowing force of the unmanifest transcends its limitations, demanding fresh modes of development. Sunshine Chick says, where's the whiteboard? Oh, it's behind me. I might have to get that. Yeah, I don't see why not. I'll grab that. Om Namah Shivaya. Here we go. Whiteboard acquired. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. All right, so let's keep going. So, number 3. The limits of the organization of such a form having been reached, the ever-inflowing force of the unmanifest transcends its limitations, demanding fresh modes of development, establishing fresh relationships and stresses. It is this outdriving of unorganized, uncompensated force, which is Hakma, and because Hakma is a dynamic Sephiroth, ever outflowing and boundless energy, we do so well to look upon it as a channel for the passage of force rather than a receptacle for the storage of force. Right? So the unmanifest, it continues to pour into Kether. And the stillness of Kether has been stimulated. And now it finally has an outlet. Right? The stimulation has filled this thing up to the brim. Now it has an outlet. And that's what Kether is. So that imbalance of the force, it's now channeled through Hakma. So even as she says, Hakma is best seen as a channel for the passage of force rather than a receptacle. What would be the receptacle? Somebody tell me what would actually be the receptacle. If Kether is the equilibrium, continually receiving from the unmanifest, what would actually be the receptacle of that force? And probably no coincidence that this is the 3rd verse. In any case, number 4. Hakma is not an organizing Sephiroth, but it is the great stimulator of the universe. The great stimulator of the universe. That's why this represents the masculine force. That's why this represents the standing stone, right? The uplifted rod of power, the straight line. Oops, I better plug this phone in. There we go. Okay, so yes, you're absolutely right. The receptacle would be Bina. So that upper triad, it is perfect. Now, the reason I'm making that a point is because as we learned several months ago, maybe some for the first time and maybe others just a reminder, the upper triad is still perfect. What we're describing here is still a perfect perfect system. Now, from Kether to Hakma to Bina to Doth, that would have been the perfect 4, right? That would have been the perfect 4. That would have been perfect harmony and balance. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why where Doth is, there's a limit of the abyss, and nothing crosses that point that is below that point. The only thing that crosses this point is what is originally Kether itself. Or should I say, what is the immortal part of Kether? Essentially the soul. So it's a perfect system of 4. But from the angle of existence below Doth, we're going to see the rest of the tree as it is. Now, with that being said, an idea has entered my head here. The Power of Yetzera is the name given to Hakma. 4 worlds. Perfect 4 Sephirah. Doth being the existence of illusion, or I should say, the barrier between illusion and reality. So again, number 4, Hakma is not an organizing Sephirah, but it is the great stimulator of the universe. It is from Hakma that Bina, the 3rd Sephirah, receives its influx of emanation. And Bina is the first of the organizing, stabilizing Sephirah. It is not possible to understand either of the paired Sephirah without considering its mate. Therefore, in order to understand Hakma, we shall have to say something about Bina. Let it be noted then that Bina is assigned to the planet Saturn and is called the Superior Mother. Om Namah Shivaya. Mother Superior. Superior Mother. Interesting. Alligator, peace. Greetings, class. Darth Gator is in the house. Peace, peace. Fantastic 4. Number 5. In Hakma and Bina, we have the archetypal positive and negative. All right, that's pretty self-explanatory. So we're talking about the archetype. That's looking at the tree from the mental plane. So the archetypal, which means like the overstanding level, right? The context level. I always say this, you've got context and content. Context represents the structure. Content represents what fills in the structure. So if we were to look at the context of the tree, especially the upper triad, we'll see that the context of Hakma is the archetypal positive. The context of Bina is the archetypal negative. All right? So whenever you say divine masculine, divine feminine, we're talking about Hakma Bina. Whenever you say positive and negative in regards to the spiritual stuff, we're talking Hakma and Bina. And I do understand that the students of this particular subject matter does not believe that positive means good and negative means bad. Because positive means moving in a certain direction, negative means moving in a certain direction. The primordial maleness and femaleness, established while countenance beheld, not countenance. And manifestation was incipient. Somebody look up incipient. That's a word right there. Incipient. It is from these primary pairs of opposites that the pillars of the universe spring, between which is woven the web of manifestation. So one good thing to understand here is when you look at the image of the tree, you're going to notice that Hakma and Bina are at the top of those pillars. And just like what she said here, these are the archetypal positive and negative, the archetypal male and female. So everything that comes after is established and based on Hakma and Bina. Everything. We say we live in a dualistic universe or whatever. Well, what that means is that this universe, the existence of this universe, is the dance between positive and negative. It's the dance between masculine and feminine. Look at our culture. Look at every single thing we do, and you're going to find the influence of the dance between masculine and feminine, positive and negative. So what she says here is, it's from these primary pairs of opposites that the pillars of the universe spring. The universe is supported by the pillars of severity and the pillars of mercy. The universe is supported by these two pillars. Now, that doesn't mean the universe is a structure that's sitting on top of two pillars. What we're saying is that the foundation base code of everything that we can experience is based off positive and negative, masculine and feminine, the powers of Hakma and Bina. So she says here, between those two pillars is woven the web of manifestation. Without those two archetypal forces, there would be no manifestation. There would be no manifestation. And the Vedics would tell us that actually there's three. There's the positive, the negative, and the in-between. Now she's saying this too because if you really look at the tree, there's not two pillars, but there's three. There's the positive, the negative, and the pillar of mildness. Likewise, when man and woman come together in a certain kind of way, eventually there's going to be a third. Framestar Film says positive and negative within each sphere, respectively. Yes, and as she puts it in this book, the spheres are both and neither. They're only positive and negative depending on their relationship to another. So honestly, Hakma is negative and feminine to Kether, because Hakma is receiving from Kether, and Bina is masculine to Chesed, because Bina is giving to Chesed. So within them both is established positive and feminine, just like what Framestar Films also says here. What'd you say? Father Time and Great Mother. Bina is the Great Mother to Hakma, but Bina is Father Time to everything under her. Saturn and Bina is death and Father Time to everything under Bina. Good stuff. Okay, thank you, Sunshine Chick. Sunshine Chick says incipient means in an initial stage, beginning to happen or develop. Thank you. Hollow Vegeta says beginning to exist, initial stages. Thank you. Mariah Magdalene says the beginning. Perfect. So incipient means the beginning, kind of like inception. Gotcha. Society Eject says positive, negative like a battery. Positive red cable represents the power. Negative black cable represents the ground wire. Mike's Art says protons, electrons, neutrons. Correlation maybe. Absolutely. Hollow Vegeta says that's why I see good and evil less as war and more of a dance, because they work together. Precisely. And it takes an advanced perspective to see that. Sunshine Chick says we need Nuru to give us the quantum physics correlation. Yeah, I haven't seen him in a bit. El Diablo Nigo says, I see why it's relationship based now. Exactly. Positive and negative depending on the context. Again, I also want you to see that it's important to focus on the context more than it is to focus on the content. The content will always change. The content is endless. Like, we could sit here and talk about angels and demiurge and who's stronger and who's weaker and like all that stuff. but that's not really getting us anywhere. What gets us a level of understanding is not the stuff, but understanding the context of what we're talking about, right? Because what does Hellraiser say when Pinhead arrives after you open the box? Angels to some, demons to others. It's not because they choose to be good and bad, it's because it's about the context. The context. So in one context, these powers, cosmic powers, are going to be masculine or feminine, all on the context. Hollow Vegeta says, Bobby got folks hating on y'all to be off. Yeah, well, you know. This is why it's important to continue studying and never ever to stop and say, oh, I got it figured out. Because from Bobby's perspective, maybe that's what it was. But as I've come to find, Yaldabaoth is Prakriti. Yaldabaoth is the tree. The demiurge is the tree. We're studying the demiurge, right? I took a screenshot, and Brother Yosef had a live stream the other day, and this guy asked this question, and it was just so, I mean, it wasn't no profound question, but it just kind of gave me a glimpse of just like where some people's minds are. It's like you hear this information, but it's like, it's just words to you. It's words that you apply to understandings that you already had in the past. No new learning, just what you already had. You know, for example, let's take a look here. The question is, who's the strongest bad guys? The demiurge, Yaldabaoth, or the fallen angels from the Qlipoth? And I thought to myself, like, to ask that kind of question, it shows that I don't think you know what those words mean. But just like you said, Bobby got us hating on Yaldabaoth. These are names of concepts. So if you treat those words, Yaldabaoth, demiurge, fallen angels, Qlipoth, if you treat those words as content, you're going to see them as beings and creatures, right? Angels and demons and stuff. But if you treat those words as context, you would never make that mistake. So the demiurge and Yaldabaoth, that's a context. That's a framework and a system. It's not a thing. Fallen angels, they're not content. There's not actual angels that fell from somewhere. Those represent a context, a process. The Qlipoth, that's not a thing. It's a context. Do you see why I say that? Do you see why I'm saying, like, focus on the context and not the content? Because if you don't, then you're going to be asking questions like this. Who's the strongest bad guy? Demiurge, Yaldabaoth, or the fallen angels? Who's the strongest bad guy? You wouldn't ask that question if you understood that these things are actually processes. Processes, not things. Do you catch my drift? Do you see where I'm going with that? Hollow Vegeta says, no graven images. Exactly. Stray Panther says, content, the containment, substance, egregores. Mike's Art says, the devil, content. And here's the thing, like, we can use those terms properly if you see them as contextual and not full of content. There's not a red man. There's not a red man with a pitchfork. That's a process. That's why I say it's an algorithm. It's not a thing. If you go off thinking that it's a thing, then you go off into superstition territory. And a mind full of superstition is not suitable to study the high science. You're not ready for it. So I'm grateful for you all, because you all have come to that understanding, so we can talk about this stuff. We can talk about this type of thing. Because we know that Hakma isn't a place out in space somewhere, right? Kether's not a place out in space somewhere. This is abstract. All right, let's keep going. Who is the strongest bad guy? And even there, the frame of the question, right? Who said that these were bad guys? What's so bad about the demiurge? What's so bad about the demiurge? Like, really? Society EJ says, yes, asking different questions with the same framework. I'm really starting to understand that these are all different frameworks. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Who is the strongest bad? Like this is Dragon Ball Z, or like, you know, some like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Who's the strongest bad guy? Frieza, Cell, Majin Buu. Anyway, number 6. As we have already noted, the Tree of Life is a diagrammatic representation of the universe on which the positive and negative, male and female aspects are represented by the two flanking pillars of mercy and severity. It may seem strange to uninstructed thought that the title of mercy should be given to the male or positive pillar, and that of severity to the female pillar. But when it is realized that the dynamic male type of force is the stimulator of upbuilding and evolution, and that the female type of force is the builder of forms, it will be seen that the nomenclature is apt. For form, although it is the builder and organizer, is also the limiter. Pay attention, because if the father is the giver of life, somebody tell me what the mother is. If the father is the giver of life, then what is the mother? See, when that standing stone, when that uplifted rod of power, when that phallus, when that lingam injects life into the womb, that womb then does its job and creates, builds, and organizes, and also limits. So if the father is the giver of life, what is the mother? Each form that is built must in turn be outgrown. It must lose its usefulness, and so become a hindrance to evolving life, and therefore the bringer in of dissolution and decay, which leads on to death. The father is the giver of life, but the mother is the giver of death, because her womb is the gate of ingress to matter. And though her life is ensouled in form, through her, life is ensouled in form, and no form can be either infinite or eternal. Death is implicit in birth. So the father is the giver of life and the mother is the giver of death. Why? Because through her womb, soul enters into the world of matter. And because soul has entered into the world of matter, because it's been given a form, no form is infinite or eternal. Every form must be broken. So the simple fact that infinite soul had to become form, had to be built and organized, it had to be limited. And it has a time span, and it must die. That's why Bina is the divine feminine. And like I said earlier, she's the divine feminine to Hakma and Kether, right? But if we exist below the point of Bina, then we look up at Bina as Father Time, as the Grim Reaper with the scythe, death. You see what I'm saying? Bina is death. Don't be scared. Be prepared. Looks like my chat is screwing up again, because it looks like nobody's here. Let me refresh. Cosmic Chlorophyll. Peace. Sunshine Chick says, ooh, I was right. Kali. Yes, y'all. And you don't stop. Serious Suit 888. Great question. He says, is that what they talk about, women giving sin to the world in the Bible? I would say so. And I want to tell you this also. This is a side note. Please understand this also. If we're looking from the framework of the Vedic system, please hear me out now. There is no other god or goddess outside of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. There's no other god outside of Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Durga. Now notice this said from the Hindu system. You can use whatever religion you want. It doesn't matter. But hear me out. These three entities represent the three phases of Prakriti. They represent Kether, they represent Hakma, and they represent Bina. So there is no other god outside of Kether, Hakma, Bina, right? Depending on what culture you come from, you got a different name for them. We're talking about the three gunas. There's no other god outside of Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. Don't get stuck in the content, right? See, if you're somebody who gets stuck in the content, you're going to say, well, I don't believe in that. I believe in Jesus, or I believe in Oshun. You're going to pick a different piece of content and try to argue with me about that. Hear me out. I'm not saying that. These are contextual, right? So there's no other god outside of complete harmony, force moving, and force being destroyed. G-O-D, generator, operator, destroyer. There's no god outside of those. Now, hear me out also. Those are actually one god. Those are actually one god in three phases, right? See, this is why this stuff is advanced, and a mind that isn't mature can't receive this. I'm not talking about three people in the clouds. I'm talking about three modes of existence: generation, operation, and destruction. There's no god outside of Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma. There's no god outside of Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Durga. The three of them are high-level representations of Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva: generation, operation, destruction. Let me know if you follow what I'm saying here, because I know somebody doesn't, but I know also that somebody does. And here's why I say this, because my cousin, he's really, really into this stuff, and he's buying all these books and these different statues and stuff like that, and he's showing me about these different gods, and he keeps saying like, wow, I had no idea that Surya was an avatar of Vishnu, or I had no idea that Yamantaka was an avatar of Shiva. And I keep saying to him like, yo, there is no other god outside of Vishnu, Brahma, and Saraswati. Excuse me, Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. There's no god outside of them. Every single god you're going to see in the Vedic Hindu pantheon is an avatar of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Every single god you're going to see in the Vedic pantheon is an avatar of Saraswati, Durga, and Lakshmi. Every single one of them. Now check this out now. Every single god that you've ever known of in existence is an avatar of them. Did you know that Jesus is an avatar of Vishnu? So what would that make Mother Mary? What would that make Mary Magdalene? Not Mother Mary, but Mary Magdalene. That would make her an avatar of Lakshmi, right? And the devil, an avatar of Shiva, right? Right? Every single god you can think of is going to be an avatar of one of those prime three. So what that means is Jesus Christ is an avatar of Sattva, an avatar of Kether. That's why he's located in the Tifereth, because Tifereth is an expression of Kether. Yesod is an expression of Kether. Malkuth is an expression of Kether. Gibera is an expression of Bina. Hod is an expression of Bina. Chesed is an expression of Hakma. Netzach is an expression of Hakma. You get what I'm saying? Christopher Ramtatan says Kali came from Durga. Right. And you'll find that every single goddess comes from one of the top three. Every single god comes from one of the top three. Every single one. There are no others. So what we're saying here is not that there's different people out here. We're saying that all these gods and goddesses are expressions of motion. They're expressions of generation, operation, or destruction. Once you wrap your head around that, you'll stop being confused and you won't be asking questions like Homeboy asked. Who's the strongest bad guy? If somebody did not get what I said, please let me know. Because I think that's key and crucial to understand. Because if you don't understand that, you're gonna get lost. You're gonna hear about you're gonna keep looking for the strongest god to work with or the strongest bad guy to be scared of. And that's getting lost in the world of content and completely forgetting and ignoring the world of context. Straight Panther says there's no god or goddess outside of you. But you is not even a thing. You don't exist. You're an expression of these entities as well. All you are is awareness of different states and different frames. So what we actually are is the expression of one of these various algorithms. You don't exist. I don't exist. I'm just an expression of any given algorithm at any given time. And that's why we study this stuff, so that we can know. Alligator says, where does Shakti fit into this equation? Shakti is going to be the feminine aspect, the active aspect. Now, there is somewhat of a flip around here. Shakti is going to represent the Hakma force. The Shakti represents the Hakma force. So in this chapter, we're reading about Shakti. But truly, Shakti represents the whole tree. Because Shakti is the active expression of Prakriti, the energy expression of Prakriti. Sirius 2888 says it makes total sense, like how she said that Hakma is the stimulator of the universe, aka God coming out of Hakma consciousness in the three forms, right? Right. So right there, Hakma is the stimulating force. Hakma is Shakti. So in the Vedic system, it's feminine, but in the Kabbalistic system, it's masculine. But again, please don't get lost in the content. Just understand the function and the context. Hokey doke. Let's keep going. Good stuff. Great stuff. Sunshine Chick says, where does Shakti fit in relation to Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Durga? Well, Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Durga are the Shakti forces of the males. So, Vishnu, the Shakti force of Vishnu is Lakshmi. The Shakti force of Brahma is Saraswati. The Shakti force of Shiva is Durga. You get it? Christopher Ramchatan says they are all the different parts of us. An image is used to get the subconscious running. Okay, so yeah, those feminine avatars are the Shakti force of the masculine avatar. The males don't actually do anything. Brahma is just sitting there. Vishnu is laying there, chilling. Shiva is meditating, right? It's the women who are doing the movement. You see Saraswati, she's doing all kind of things. She's teaching, she's singing, she's playing the guitar, she's reading and studying. She's doing all this stuff at the same time, right? That's Saraswati, right? Look at Lakshmi. Look at Durga's riding on a lion, right? She's got a bow and an arrow. She's got a sword. You know what I'm saying? She's coming down here kicking ass, taking names, destroying, tearing stuff up because she represents the tamasic force. So the feminine aspect in the Vedic system, they are the Shakti. They are the Hakma. In the Kabbalistic system that we're reading about, that's the male side of the tree. That's the positive side of the tree. That's the right side of the tree. That's the Shakti force. Which is why probably you'll see Netzach or Venus as a woman, even though it's on the masculine side of the tree. All right. So that was my TED Talks. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Society Eject says, yes, Shakti is the feminine principle of divine energy. Exactly. All right, let's keep going. The father is the giver of life, but the mother is the giver of death. Om Klim Kali Kaye Namaha. Om Klim. Big Klim head is. All right. Maybe I'll have to move my book stand because I have the phone plugged in. Gerald Sombright, peace. Gerald Sombright says, peace. Travis, hey chat, I hope I didn't miss too much. Me too. You know what? I'm gonna run to the bathroom. Excuse me. I'm gonna take a break real quick. You guys chill and be easy. Read ahead if you want. I'll be right back. Give me a few minutes. Coffee time. First cup of the day. All right. Shreem Brazil. Shreem Brazil. Shreem Brazil. All right. Oh, what the hell? Cosmic Flow says Jermaine Dupri. Oh, here we go. Okay. Verse number 7. Oh my God. Some of y'all might remember this, but there was a song by Criss Cross, and it was like, Criss Cross will make you jump, jump. Daddy Mac will make you jump, jump. My brother was like, Jermaine Dupri made us jump, jump. Oh my God. If you know, then you know that that's a pretty bad joke. But anyways, number 7. It is between these two polarizing aspects of manifestation, the supernal father and the supernal mother, that the web of life is woven. Souls going back and forth between them like a weaver's shuttle. In our individual lives, in our physiological rhythms, and in the history of the rise and fall of nations, we observe the same rhythmic periodicity. Periodicity, what a word. So what she's saying here is kind of like what I said earlier about how the entire structure of our existence is upheld by the source code of positive, negative, masculine, and feminine. So everything is a dance going in between those two poles. Now, technically, there's a third state, which is the sattvic state, the in-between, the mild state, as is shown by the 3 pillars. But every single thing in existence, I don't care what it is, who it is, how it is, when it was, why it is, it's going to be displaying these qualities of positive, negative, and equilibrium to a degree. Equilibrium is incredibly difficult to maintain in the manifest dimension because time is always moving and space is always moving. So it's extremely difficult to maintain equilibrium there. Good call, Stray Panther. He says polarity. This is the law, the principle of polarity, as we saw in the Qabalah. But it's important to be able to identify that no matter if we're talking about the rise and fall of nations, or we're talking about your daily rhythm of how you wake up, go to the bathroom, check your Facebook, go to work, do the whoop-de-whoop, eat your lunch break, do some more whoop-de-whoop, come home, watch your Netflix, do your business, then go to sleep. There's a rhythm there, and there's masculine and feminine influence. And maybe somewhere you've got a sattvic moment. Most people don't. But it's extremely helpful to try to cultivate sattva in your life. And this makes a clearer picture of how to do that. Maybe keep an eye on what you do and try to express harmony and balance, not being too much on the masculine side, not too much on the feminine side. I'm not talking about gender and culture. I'm talking about being more generative or more destructive. Is there a way to be balanced and harmonized? Sunshine Chick says, well, I guess Parvati is Durga. Exactly. Like I said, there's only 3 goddesses and there's only 3 gods. Technically, there's only one, but it's easier for us to comprehend if we break them into 3. So every single feminine divine being is going to be traced back to Lakshmi, Saraswati, or Durga. Every single divine masculine entity is going to be traced back to Vishnu, Brahma, or Shiva. Every single one. Every single one. I don't care who it is. And if you really break that down, we'll find that everything can be related to one of those three channels of expression. That's why there's three pillars on the tree. And that's the mystery of the number three. As soon as you get through the passage of Bina, you have been allocated context of one of those three channels. So what are you? Are you primarily a generator, an operator, or a destroyer? Are you primarily Rajasic, Sattvic, or Tamasic? Are you somebody who mostly starts things, mostly finishes things, or someone who mostly upholds and sustains things? Periodicity. That's a nice word. Number 8. In these, the first paired Sephiroth, we have the key to sex. The pair of biological opposites, maleness and femaleness. But the pairing of opposites does not only occur in type, it also occurs in time. And we have alternating epochs in our lives, in our physiological processes, and in the history of nations, during which activity and passivity, construction and destruction alternately prevail. You see what you're saying here? Activity and passivity, construction and destruction, they alternate. Nothing is stagnant. Like I said, just like what I said, if it exists within time and space, it cannot be stagnant. It's going to have to go up or down, and it alternates. Nothing is always one thing. That's not natural. That's not even cosmically legal. The knowledge of the periodicity of these cycles is part of the secret, guarded, ancient wisdom of the initiates, and it is worked out astrologically and kabbalistically. Now, one hint is to take a look at the Yuga cycles, right? We've all heard of the Kali Yuga. Well, Kali is a divine feminine, so the Kali Yuga is a feminine epoch. And as we know, Kali is a representative of Tamas, which is things breaking down and being destroyed. This is why when you look at the world today, it is the way that it is, because it's under the influence of Tamas. Even time has to express itself under Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. So if time has to express itself under those three, what makes you think that everything else would be exempt? Anything else would be exempt? No. But as she's saying here, being able to identify the influence, that's one of the secrets of the initiates. And we know a couple of different ways to do that, don't we? Right? You guys know about the tattva time, the influence of the elements on time. There's a lot of things. The moon cycles. If you don't know anything else, if you call yourself a baby witch or a basic witch or whatever, you know that there's things to do during the waxing moon, waning moon, new moon, full moon, right? Why is that? Because the moon phases also represent the influence of Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. Right? The new moon and the full moon represent the positive and negative Sattvic influence. Waxing and waning represent the Rajasic and Tamasic. Straight Panther says days of the week even. Absolutely, right? Because we know that today, as I show you subconsciously, I'm surrounded by the color red. Why is that? Because it's Tuesday, which is under the influence of Mars, Gibura. So there's a certain kind of expression going on there. Wednesday, ruled by Hod, Mercury. Thursday, ruled by Jupiter, Chesed, right? Straight Panther says the solstice events too. Right. So you see what I'm saying? There's the different solstices, equinoxes, your Beltane, and all that different stuff. Time is also under the influence. I love it. This is good stuff. Good stuff. Well, I hope you guys are seeing this. Romeo Corleone says the seasons. Right. We know that the seasons are under the influence of the elements. Summer under the influence of fire. No, excuse me. I think that would be yeah. And we got spring, and we got fall, and we got winter. All these are under the influence of the different elements. Nothing in this manifest universe, and even beyond, is exempt from Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. And it is Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva that influence, inspire, and create the four elements. Okay. Sunshine Chick says Martes in Spanish, Tuesday. Mariah Magdalene says Friday by Venus. Right, so you guys get it. And if you don't have this stuff memorized, it wouldn't hurt you to make a list. Of what are the different influences behind the days, behind the months, behind the times, the seasons. Because what this does is it trains you to see the world as an occultist, as a magician, as somebody who knows how to work with the flow, with the force. So it's not no crystals, it's not burning sage, it's not no candles. It's about understanding the patterns. That's what it's about. Understanding the context, not the content, but the context. You dig? You dig? Good evening, Mike Sart. Have a good one. Oh, the coffee's quite hot. I gotta sit up to drink this. Good stuff. Straight Panther says, hey, Travis Magus, you me then. I don't get it. Sunshine Chick says, I remember what planets rule the day by learning the days of the weeks in Spanish. The planets are in the names. Yeah, it's true. It's true. That's the moon. Martes, that's Mars. Viernes. Close enough. Sábado, Domingo. Oh, yeah, okay. I said, you see me then. Correspondence and symbolism study. Yes. Wednesday, Miraculous, Mercury. Hell yeah. That's good. I didn't catch that the first time. Miércoles, Mercury. The language makers understood these things as well. Language makers were occultists too, because language is a matrix within the matrix. Did you know that you can't really comprehend things that are not in your language? We ever heard that love, we only have like one word for love, but other cultures have so many different words for different types of love. So by default, they have a wider understanding of different things. So yeah, the language makers also set a context for understanding. You can't think outside of your language, which is why it's very helpful to learn a different language. If we take something out of your language, then you don't have the necessary tools to comprehend it. That's pretty wild, isn't it? So consider that just may be some reassurance that we don't quite know everything just yet. Not yet. We know a lot, but not everything. There are always things that are just outside of your experience, and don't let that be a bummer, right? Because there's different ways to figure stuff out. I mentioned at the beginning of this live stream that I was doing some powerful rituals. And one of them does involve me accessing unconscious parts of myself that I didn't even share their language, so I couldn't speak to them in English. I literally had to trust that they would be able to figure out what they needed on their own and then deliver it to me in a way that I could understand. Would you be comfortable doing that? Would you be comfortable finding a deep part of yourself that is causing you to behave in a way that you didn't really like and asking it for a solution? And then understanding that it doesn't even speak English, so you have to kind of trust it to translate to you? Good stuff. Mick Close says, hey Trav, would you burn $1 million like the KLF? I don't think I'm familiar with that. I don't know what the KLF means. Would I burn $1 million? It's contextual, you know, like probably not. I can't think of a context right now where I would do that, but if I needed to, hell yeah. It's just stuff. Don't get me wrong now, that stuff can help me to acquire a lot of other stuff, but I'm not about to forsake any of my values and standards over stuff. It's got to make sense, of course, but the stuff itself is just a symbol. What I've learned at this stage of my life is it's not money, like it's not about hoarding money. I know how to make money. So I'll never feel broke again. I'll never feel lost again. I know how to make money. Before I didn't know that. So my answer would probably be hell no. But if you know how to make money, then money doesn't mean anything anymore. But again, I don't know what a KLF is, and I don't know your exact example. But hopefully that's my answer. Society Eject says, oh, that makes sense. Our understanding is contingent on our language, English. Precisely, my man, precisely. Jeez Louise. But yeah, probably to answer your question, Miklos says KLF are a band from the 90s. I mean, you know, a couple things have to be in place. Number one, I'd have to know how to make $1 million, which I'm figuring out. Because once you know that, then $1 million doesn't mean anything. You just keep making it. But also, it'd have to be for a good reason. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe it could be put to a different use, like to donate it to a worthy cause, or to help build something to help other people, or, you know, to invest in it in a certain way. If I could see a way that it would make sense to utterly obliterate it, to get it out of the system, yeah. But I think that I could probably think of a more useful way to demonstrate that. Because I'm sure at the root of that action, they were trying to demonstrate something. And I think that if I could find a more efficient way to demonstrate that thing, I'd probably go with that. But if it's mostly to just say, fuck the system, hey, ask me that question again next year. Okay, Miklo says, an artist that were fed up with the music, followers of Mu, and artists that were fed up with the music industry. Yeah. And see, what I would probably do is find a better way to express that frustration. I say better because I think there's a way that we could actually do that to build something, right? If the music industry is fucked and I'm tired of it, I would create my own industry, right? I'd create my own system with that money so that other people like me would not have to go through what I went through. Because to just burn that money, I don't have a correlation to how that actually would help further the cause. Because yeah, you know, money is just what it is. It's a symbol, but that symbol, it has a purpose, which is to cause change. So instead of just obliterating it, I would cause change. Miklo says, I think they've done it as a work of art. Yeah. I'm sure they had their perfect intention, and they probably achieved what they set out to achieve. But specifically to answer your question, I'd probably have done it differently for me. Right foot creep. Oh, I'm walking with the heater. All of Vegeta says, my illusionary kids be hungry, all I'm saying. Miklo says, but it's just paper and metal. Indeed, but it isn't just paper and metal. It also symbolizes something. It's a symbol. All of matter is just matter. But what makes matter different from any other piece of matter is what it symbolizes. All right, let's keep going. The devil under your feet, you're on the way to see him. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is... Okay. Number 9. The magical image of Hakma and the symbols assigned to it bear out this idea. The magical image is that of a bearded male, bearded to indicate maturity. The father who has proved his manhood, not the untried virgin male. The symbolic language speaks plainly, and the lingam of the Hindus and the phallus of the Greeks are the male generative organ in their respective tongues. The standing stone, the tower, and the uplifted rod all signify the same virile member at its most potent. Dion Fortune, what are you talking about? The standing stone, the tower, and the uplifted rod all signify the same virile member at its most potent. So in other words, we gotta think symbolically here. Hakma is symbolized and represented by a fully erect penis. Not just because of what it is, but because of what it represents. That means that something's about to go down, something's about to be stimulated, because something has been stimulated. It's the spoon that stirs the soup. And the soup is being stirred for a reason. Because that stirred up soup is going to create something new, something that didn't exist before. The sum of the parts will be greater than the individual parts. The lingam and the yoni produce something that is greater than the individual lingam and the yoni. So that's why you're going to see the phallic symbol and the lingam symbol. It's not so much about sex, just sex. It represents something. And like I said, the spoon that stirs up the soup. Because the soup is being stirred up and cooked because it's going to create a full belly. Just like a yoni and lingam are going to create a full belly. And if you didn't catch that, I mean pregnancy. Number 10. It must not be thought, however, that Hakma is a phallic or sexual symbol and nothing else. It is primarily a dynamic or positive symbol, for maleness is a form of dynamic force, just as femaleness is a form of static, latent, or potential force, inert until stimulus has been given. The whole is greater than the part. Nice. And Hakma and Bina are wholes of which sex is a part. In understanding the relationship which sex has to polarizing force as a whole, we find the key to the right understanding of sex, and we can assess against a cosmic standard the teachings of psychology and morality relating thereto. We can also see how it comes about that the subconscious mind of man can represent the sexes by so many and such diverse symbols as the Freudians aver, and why sublimation of the sexual instinct is possible as the moralists aver. Manifestation, then, is sexual in so much as it takes place always in terms of the pairs of opposites, and sex is cosmic and spiritual because it has its roots in the three supernals. We must learn not to dissociate the airy flower from the earthy root, for the flower that is cut off from its root fades, and its seeds are barren, whereas the root, secure in Mother Earth, can produce flower after flower and bring their fruit to maturity. Nature is greater and truer than conventional morality. Let me say that again, because I had to highlight it. Nature is greater and truer than conventional morality, which is often nothing but taboo and totemism. Happy the people whose morality embodies nature's laws, for they shall lead harmonious lives and increase and multiply and possess the earth. Unhappy the people whose morality is a savage system of taboos designed to propitiate an imaginary Moloch of a deity, for they shall be sterile and sinful. Equally unhappy are the people whose morality outrages the sanctity of natural process, and in plucking the flower has no regard for the fruit, for they shall be diseased of body and corrupt of estate. How you see the world, you may not realize it, has a huge impact on how your body and mind evolve. Because sick minds generally produce sick bodies. It's not a 100% everyday equivalent, but typically, there's a such thing that happens when you hold a belief in mind so long and so deeply that you begin to produce effects in the physical body. Peace, MC Maestro. Mystical's Qabalah. I'd love to see that album cover. Sunshine Chick says, so does that mean kids that were born in under parents that weren't spiritually yoked by default has to work out karma? Does that make sense? Absolutely. Absolutely, Sunshine Chick. And guess what? There are children who are born into families that are not only old money and super wealthy, but also highly spiritual. You better believe that indicates very, very, very good karma. But don't get it twisted now. You can have good karma and be born into a place that might give someone else massive challenges. Because karma isn't always just for you, the individual. Karma also has to deal with the land and the soul group and the community. Sometimes we're born into places like that because we're there to change it. Straight Panther says Moloch, furnace, solar plexus, stomach. John 1:17, the name of Master Chief from Halo. Alligator says, why doesn't Dion like the clip-off deities? LOL. Good question. I haven't talked to her in a little while. Maybe I should call her up and ask her. Gator, I wonder what it would be like if you were to teach a class on healing. I wonder what kind of things you'd bring up and what kind of things that you'd emphasize. I thought about that yesterday. Verse number 11. In Hakma, then, we must see both the creative world, which said, "Let there be light," and the lingam of Shiva and the phallus adored by the Bacchantes. If you don't know about Bacchantes, there's a god called Bacchus, which was also very similar to Dionysus. I believe that Bacchus was Greek and Dionysus was Roman, or I might have those two reversed. But if you know about Dionysus, you know about Bacchus. Wine and sex and YOLO, basically. So she says here, in Hakma, then, we must see both the creative word, which said, "Let there be light," and the lingam of Shiva, and the phallus adored by the Bacchantes. We must learn to recognize dynamic force and revere it wherever we see it, for its God name is Jehovah Tetragrammaton. Let me read that again. We must learn to recognize dynamic force and revere it whenever we see it, for its God name is Jehovah Tetragrammaton. We see it in the spread tail of the peacock and the iridescence of the neck of the dove, but we also hear it in the yowl of the tomcat and smell it in the stench of the he-goat. Likewise, we meet it in the colonizing adventurers of the most virile epochs of our history, notably those of Elizabeth and Victoria, both women. We see it again in the man diligent in his toil, strenuous in his profession, in order that his home may be provided for. The hard-working male, right? All these types of Hakma, whose additional title is Abba, Father. In all these manifestations, let us see the Father, the giver of life to the unborn, as well as the male lusting after its mate. Thus, we shall get a truer perspective in matters of sex. The Victorian attitude, in its reaction against restoration grossness, practically arrived at the standard of the most primitive tribes who, travelers tell us, do not associate the union of the sexes with the production of offspring. So please understand what she's saying here. When we talk about divine masculine, when we talk about the male potency of the divine, eliminate from your imagination that it's just a dude and a man. Like, that's not what it means. What she's talking about, take all the examples that she had here and find the connection, right? The spread tail of the peacock, the iridescent neck of the dove, the yowl of the tomcat, the stench of the he-goat, right? The colonizers going out across the world, conquering countries, slaying natives and establishing their country's flag and creating new countries, right? People going out into the unknown and creating new things. The same way that the sperm swims through that unknown territory of the vaginal canal to establish something new, right? The male lusting after the mate. The hard-working father who's working 2-3 jobs just to support his kids. All these things, or hell, the hard-working mother working 2-3 jobs to support her kids. All these things represent the power of the divine masculine. It's not limited to a male body. It's a force. It's a force. It's a force of going out and establishing something new. You get what I'm saying? The he-goat. Ross L. Peace. Here, MC Maestro says the bee is symbolic of the path of Hakma to Tifereth. Sirius says, I wonder what path that is. MC Maestro says the 15th path, represented by the Emperor. Gabriella Gemstone, peace. Society Eject says the most primitive tribes, Bihar, right? I know this masculine and feminine stuff is not easy for most people to grasp. Despite like what I'm saying, and despite people saying, yeah, I get it, it's very hard for people to understand this because we've been taught and ingrained a certain type of message for so long, it's difficult to change that. So I know that a lot of people say, yeah, I get it, but I also know 5 minutes later, that's not true. Gabriella Gemstone says, so grateful to catch this live. I'm still on chapter 7, but it's good to be here regardless. Yes, ma'am. Keep it going. Keep it going. Sunshine Chick says, understanding the concepts of what things mean makes it easier not to get hung up on the words. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. Because to get hung up on the words, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're getting stuck on the content and missing the context. Sunshine Chick says, understanding the meanings, meta-awareness. Uh-oh. This sounds like mental plane language you're using. Speak to me in the tongue of Bria. Number 12. The color of Hakma is said to be gray. In its higher aspects, pearl gray, iridescent. In this, we see the veiling of the pure white light of Kether descending in its path of emanation towards Bina, whose color is black. 13. The mundane chakra, or direct physical manifestation of Hakma, is said to be the zodiac. Let me say that again. The mundane chakra, or the direct physical manifestation of Hakma, what's that? The direct physical manifestation of Hakma is said to be the zodiac. Right? So what's the direct physical manifestation of Hakma? The zodiac, called in Hebrew Mazaloth. We thus see that the ancient rabbis rightly understood the process of the evolution of our solar system. The Yetzeratic text assigned to Hakma is, as usual, exceedingly obscure in its wording. Nevertheless, we can gather from it certain illuminating hints. The second path, as it denominates Hakma, it calls the Illuminating Intelligence. Peace, Matthew Watson. Nevertheless, we can gather from it certain illuminating hints. The second path, as it denominates Hakma, it calls the Illuminating Intelligence. We have already referred to the creative word, which said that there be light, among the symbols assigned to Hakma in 777, which is the Mather's Crowley system, is that of the inner robe of glory, a Gnostic term. These two ideas taken together lead on the imagination to the idea of the ennobling life in the illuminating spirit. It is the male force that implants the fecundating spark in the passive ovum on all planes and transforms its inert latency into the active upbuilding of growth and evolution. So when we talk about divine masculine, again, we're not talking about men. We're talking about the male force that implants the fecundating spark in the passive ovum on all planes. So that doesn't just happen in the human body. This happens across the universe, across dimensions. And it transforms its inert latency into the active upbuilding of growth and evolution. The same way that it's not food that gives you energy, right? And it's not sleep that gives you energy. Because after Thanksgiving, you're not energized. You'd think that the more food you eat, the more energetic you are. It's not true. As a matter of fact, your belly's full and you don't feel like doing anything. And if you sleep too long, right, you don't wake up extremely energized after 2 days of sleep. You really don't want to get out of the bed. But what happens is, when you eat food that doesn't really have the necessary nutrients to stimulate the body, you're only just adding matter to your body. But when you eat healthy food, when you eat food that's full of nutrition, what's actually happening is you're stimulating your body to produce what it needs, right? The same way that if you just take a bunch of pills from the doctor, you're flooding your body with chemicals. But if you eat the necessary nutrients and herbs, vitamins, minerals, etc., what you're actually doing is you're stimulating your body to produce exactly what it needs in the right quantity to begin the process of healing, right? So you're not putting health into your body. You're stimulating your body to give birth to energy, to give birth to health. You see how that works? Damn near everything we've been taught is incorrect. When you eat the proper nutrients, you stimulate your body to heal itself. Everything comes out of what you already have. So I'll read that again. It's the male force that implants the fecundating spark in the passive ovum on all planes and transforms its inert latency into the active upbuilding of growth and evolution, right? The same way that if you put that nutritious food into your body, it's going to activate the latent cells and the latent potential to produce what's needed for yourself. Or if a man puts sperm into a woman and it meets with the egg, it's going to produce a baby. Or if you put an idea into someone's head, it's going to generate them to create something or do something or produce something, right? If you put money into somebody's business, it's going to cause that money to grow. You see where I'm going with this? If you extend and expand yourself beyond just the basic, you can see this force at work across the universe. Shout out to the Beatles. That's why I like sea moss so much. It stimulates the body to produce what it needs. I really realized that after not taking it for a few months. Number 15. The Yetzeratic text also calls Hakma the crown of creation, thus implying that, like Kether, it is overshadowing and external to, rather than immanent and absorbed in, the manifested universe. Actually, it is the virile force of Hakma which gives the impulse to manifestation, and thus is prior to manifestation itself. Do you see that? Kether and Hakma are just outside the reach of manifestation because it is Hakma that causes manifestation to happen in the first place. So when you look at the diagram of the chakras above the body, on the body, you're going to notice that the crown chakra is above the head. It's not attached to the body. It's above and beyond, because that represents the Kether connection and the Hakma force. It's what stimulates the energy on the lower levels. And again, this points to kind of what I was saying before also. The tree of life, reality exists at all levels, But it all depends on what perspective you're looking at it from. So if you're only able to look at things from the level of Malkuth, you're gonna see, oh, the world is a dangerous place and there's bad people and we gotta stick together and fight back and we gotta do this and we gotta do that. You're looking at it from the level of Malkuth. But if you were able to rise your perspective up higher and higher on the tree, looking down, you're gonna start to see that everything is already perfect. Everything is already done. Everything is going exactly according to plan, assuming that there was a plan, but there's more of a context of perfection. There's not an actual plan for the universe. God doesn't actually have a plan. There's a context of perfection that no matter what happens, the content will fill that pattern of perfection. But you got to be able to rise to the level to see that. And if you rise high enough to the level of Hakma, dealing with the archangel of Raziel and the zodiac, you're going to start to see that everything follows a certain cycle, a certain pattern. That's why the Alphanim are represented as wheels. I told you before that the angels are not people with wings in fucking space. They are algorithms. They are processes of movement. So looking at reality from the level of the Alphanim, which are represented by the wheels and all those eyes, you're looking at angels who uphold and give structure, who give the context to existence. The active force that makes existence possible. And so with them operating from that level, they are what causes Bina to give birth to everything else. Hakma is not subject to Bina. Bina is subject to and stimulated by Hakma. You don't change the zodiac by changing anything in the material plane. The only way for you to change the stars and destiny is to rise above it. And by that time you're able to rise above it, you won't really want to have anything to do with what's below it. Somebody understood what I said. Sunshine Chick says, life is a game. Are you playing or getting played? It's a game of frames, right? Frame game. Society Eject says, yes. So when you're looking out the eye of Malkuth, you would interpret everything through Malkuth. Physical, root chakra. Exactly. Gabriella Gemstone says, I met a woman last night that I believe was operating from Malkuth. She was very afraid of people, and the second I didn't give her what she wanted, she turned her fear onto me. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Terrible. Well, not terrible. It is what it is, right? It is what it is. Peace stuff, dog. What's good? What's good? All right, let's keep going. So again, that's really important to understand. I'll read it again. The Yetzeratic text also calls Hakma the crown of creation, thus implying that, like Kether, it is overshadowing and external to, rather than immanent and absorbed in the manifested universe. Actually, it is the viral force of Hakma which gives the impulse to manifestation, and thus is prior to manifestation itself. So listen to me. When I made my diagram before, this Hakma and Kether would represent Buddhi, right? Higher Buddhi, lower Buddhi. The higher Buddhi, which is Kether, is receiving from the unmanifest, from outside Prakriti. Hakma would represent lower Buddhi, which is giving to Prakriti. Now remember how I talked about how there's the level of Om, Ahamkara, which is the level of vibration and frequency that everything is stimulated by? Well, what actually stimulates Om into existence? It's Buddhi. It is Hakma, right? Actually, it is the viral force of Hakma which gives the impulse to manifestation and is thus prior to manifestation itself. This is why the crown chakra is above the third eye. This is why Buddhi is above Ahamkara, above Omkara. Om is Bina. Buddhi is Kether and Hakma. That's only for the people who've been studying my videos for the past 6 months, 8 months at this point, 9 months. Which is just a handful of y'all. But still, maybe somebody in the future will watch this video and get what I said. Matthew Watson says, so angels are like cosmic samskaras. Yes, that's good. That's perfect. Cosmic samskaras. Yes, sir. Stuff Dog says, so does that have a representation in the physical? Like women hold access to sex, men hold access to relationships and marriage? I hear a lot of people saying that lately. Gabriella Gemstone says, do you believe these angelic algorithms work through people along with nature, or are they an energy? Well, what's the difference? I don't think you said two different things there. I think you said two aspects of the same thing. It is an energy that works through people and nature. As a matter of fact, it is the only way that nature can act. There's nothing outside of these algorithms. There's nothing beyond those angelic algorithms. Like, it's not like these angelic forces work with some people and some things. Everything behaves under the influence of these forces. There's no other way to be. There's no other way to be. Everyone is, and everything is already connected to all of these forces and patterns. This is nature. We're just looking at it under a microscope with the pretty dress taken off. Let's keep going. The voice of the Logos was crying, "Let there be light," long ere the waters were separated from the waters and the firmament appeared. Let there be light was already said before we heard it, before the universe heard it. It was already said before the waters were separated. This idea is further borne out in the phrase of the Yetzeratic text, which speaks of Hakma as the splendor of unity, equaling it, thus clearly indicating its affinity to Kether, unity, rather than to the planes of dualistic form. The word splendor, as used here, clearly indicates an emanation or shining forth, and teaches us to think of Hakma as the emanating influence of pure being, rather than a thing in itself. An emanating influence of pure being, rather than as a thing in itself. Context, not the content. Hakma is one and the same as what we've learned of as Buddhi. Teaches us to think of Hakma as the emanating influence of pure being, rather than as a thing in itself. This again leads us on to a truer apprehension of sex. Let it be made quite clear, however, that the sphere of Hakma has nothing to do with fertility cults as such, save the maleness, dynamic force, is the primary life giver and caller into manifestation. Though the higher and the lower manifestations of dynamic force are the same in essence, they are different upon different levels. Priapus is not identical with Jehovah. Who knows what Priapus is? You may have seen pictures on the internet. Priapus is a deity with a massive penis that's always erect. Gigantic. So of course, he's a male sex god. But what she's saying here is Priapus is not identical with Jehovah. Even though they represent the same force, they're the same force on different levels. So that God is not the same God as Jehovah, but they are on different levels. Just like what I was saying earlier, there are no gods and goddesses outside of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. There are no gods and goddesses outside of Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Durga. Every single deity that you've ever heard of and never heard of can be traced back to one of those three. Because all forces that exist within this manifestation are going to be a form of rajas tamas or sattva, generation, operation, destruction. There's nothing outside of those three. They just manifest upon different levels of density, different levels of influence. So while Priapus can be seen as a deity that represents male potency, so does Jehovah, but on different levels. Jehovah represents a wider, more expansive influence than Priapus. Obviously, Priapus, you pretty much know what he's dealing with, and not much else. And if it is, we're only concerned about one aspect of Priapus. Whereas Jehovah is going to cover something quite more expansive. But they originate from the same essence, the same context, the same algorithm, the divine masculine. Society EJ says, LOL, she just clarified the whole book of Genesis. Yes, sir. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. You can do stuff like that when you know what you're talking about, right? Stuff Dog says, so Trev, do you think it shrinks down from there? Like the angelic host having zoomed in version, like quarks, electron to atoms. So would the angelic host be quarks? Do you think it zooms closer? So that sounds like you're getting more into the realm of content. When we talk about these angels, we're dealing with context. So like it doesn't matter what level it's on. As long as it behaves in a certain way, we describe the behavior as a certain way, that's the description of what we're dealing with. So regardless of what size it is or where it's operating or how or with who, the relationship determines what force we're dealing with. The same way that Priapus or Jehovah, they may be different in their description, but ultimately the relationship is the same. What Priapus is about to get down and do on a level is the same thing that Jehovah gets down and does. Stuff Dog says, yeah, it's African, right? He has horns. Priapus. Dude swinging iron. Swinging iron? Swinging iron. I think he might be Greek. But yeah, I think there's like a picture. I've seen an Asian version where he's just like walking and there's like two women carrying like wheelbarrows, helping him push it along. But I think there actually might be this type of god in all cultures. I've seen an African version. I've seen a Greek version. That's Priapus. But I've seen the Chinese version also. But it represents a specific type of algorithm. Gabriella Gemstone says, still learning, just not afraid to ask questions. Yeah, don't ever be afraid to ask questions. That's how you find stuff out. Ask. And then consider it, right? Consider if it fits within your ecology, within your inner world. Society Eject says, I see she's doing a whole lot of clarification of Hakma not being related to fertility cults. It must have been a lot of that going on in her time and probably now. Exactly, my friend. Exactly. Because like what we said, you can only see things from the level that you're at. Some people get this information and they say, oh, I got it. It's time for me to start myself a sex club. And while it feels good to the body, and while they are demonstrating an aspect of the Hakma force, they're not living in a holistic system. They're only dealing with that force. And while it may be fun and cute for now, it inherently is imbalanced. Because what we're learning here is that Hakma is the expression of Kether becoming imbalanced. So if you're working with that, you're literally bringing imbalance to your reality and worshiping it. So what do you think is going to happen? All that iron that's being swung around is going to start breaking stuff. Swinging iron. Man, that's funny. Perfect we live. Peace. Nevertheless, the root of Priapus is to be found in Jehovah, and the manifestation of God the Father is to be found in Priapus. as is indicated by the fact that the rabbis call Hakma the Yod of the Tetragrammaton. And Yod is identical with Lingam in their phraseology. No accidents. When you hear Tetragrammaton, that's Yod, He, Vau, He. Yod represents the masculine sex organ. The He represents the feminine. And notice that there's two He's in Tetragrammaton, Yod, He, Vau, He. One represents the mother, one represents the daughter. Number 16. It is curious that the Sefer Yetzera says of two of the Sephiroth that they are exalted above every head. A contradictory statement, yet in the fact that it is made with regard to Hakma and Malkuth, there is illumination for us if we ponder its significance. Hakma is the supernal father, Malkuth is the inferior mother, and the text which declares her exaltation above every head also says that she sitteth upon the throne of Bina, the superior mother, the negative counterpart of Hakma. Now, Hakma is the most abstract form of force, and Malkuth is the densest form of matter. So in this statement, we have a hint that each of this pair of extreme opposites is the supreme manifestation of its own type, and both are equally holy in their different ways. Man, you can't get more opposite than that. Hakma being the most abstract form of force, and Malkuth being the densest form of matter. Peace out, Sunshine Chick. Ooh, the moon looks about full. I can see it right through the blinds. By the way, if you're enjoying this content, hit the like button. Not only does it feel good, but also it helps my videos travel through the YouTube universe so much easier. And I hope you're not out Googling pictures of Priapus. By the way, check this out. There's a disease called priapism. And what do you think that disease does? Alright, so for all of you people who are Googling, I'm going to take another quick break because coffee has an effect. It's the complete opposite of what happened when my manager whipped out his phone, if you remember that story. Alright, I'll be right back. Sorry about the delay. Looks like somebody is making chicken Alfredo, and I'm about to get some of that. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave you guys for so long, but I smell something delicious. She is throwing down in there. I'm about to throw down afterwards. So where were we? Okay, Society Ejects. Don't want to hold you up for too long. Victoria Morris just made chicken Alfredo today. Society Ejects says, I had chicken Alfredo and salad today for dinner. Look, man, ain't no coincidences. What is the metaphor behind that, right? What does this represent? You guys remember what Bobby Hemmett said about chicken? And what it represents to our country and to a culture of people? Maybe, maybe not. But anyways, there's no accidents. And it smells wonderful in there. I mean, it smells wonderful in here too, but a different kind of wonderful. Of course, I've got my concoction of Fruity Pebbles and Fruit Loops. But stepping out the door, there's deliciousness going on of a different nature. All right, let's continue. Let's continue. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, well, there's quite a few pages. I might have to wait. All good. The Balance says, I'm also making chicken. Stuffed Dog says, Abraxas. All right. MC Maestro, I'm eating chicken right now. Yeah, man, look. There's something to it. There's something to it. I didn't know it was going to be chicken Alfredo when I stepped out that door. Right? And I definitely didn't know that y'all was eating chicken. Cool beans. I love it. Even when I'm not trying. 17. We must distinguish between the fertility rite, the vitality rite, and the illumination or inspiration rite, which calls down the Pentecostal tongues of flame. The fertility cult aims at plain and simple reproduction, whether of flocks, fields, or wives. It belongs to Yesod. And y'all know why, right? Because we talked about Gabriel, the archangel of Yesod, who gives the body so that you can reincarnate. She says it belongs to Yesod and has nothing whatever to do with the vitality cult, which belongs to Netzach, the sphere of Venus and Aphrodite. Right? Gerald Sombright says, I had chicken for dinner. Wingstop be hitting. And to be honest, I was probably going to have chicken anyways. This concerns certain very important esoteric teachings on the subject of vitalizing or magnetic influences which the sexes have on each other, quite apart from physical intercourse, and will be dealt with when Netzach, the sphere of Venus, comes to be considered. So get that right. There is a place for sex and sexuality explicitly as we know it. That deals with Netzach, right? But notice what comes after Netzach. Hod and Yesod. So after the sexual process happens, that forms a context for content to be filled. And by the time you get to Yesod, you've got a body that is now ready to manifest in Malkuth, which is the physical plane. Hollow Vegeta says, I'm fasting. Y'all killing me. It's for your strength, my friend. Strength training, resistance training. Kid Red. Peace. All right, let's keep going. Enough about that delicious Abraxas. 18. The rite of Hakma, if such it can be called, is concerned with the influx of cosmic energy. It is formless, being the pure impulse of dynamic creation, and being formless, the creation it gives rise to can assume any and every form. Hence, the possibility of sublimating creative force from its purely priapic aspect. So you can turn that rock-hard priapism into pure creative energy. I'm sure you guys have heard of the concept of taking that sexual energy and turning it into creativity. I once dated a girl who said that she used to get herself to a certain point, and instead of finishing, use that energy that she gathered up to go and do some work, whether it was just cleaning the house or working on some stuff that she's been putting off or whatever. Now, I don't think I would try that, but I think that's a good example of sublimating the creative force from its purely priapic aspect. Alligator says, I'm fasting too. All right. Mystical Koala. Peace. Stuffed Dog says, creative transmutation. Eggs Blackley. I don't like to play that game, but for some people it works. And what's important is that you get the results that you intended to get. 19. So far as I know, there is no formal magical ceremony of any of the three supernals. They can only be contacted through participation in their essential nature. That's good. That's good. Because to access this type of algorithm, you have to be that type of algorithm. So what she says here is that, as far as she knows, there's no formal magical ceremony, and she knows a lot now. There's no formal magical ceremony of any type of any of the three supernals. That's Kether, Hakma, and Bina. They can only be contacted through participation in their essential nature. Kether is pure being. Kether is contacted when we win to realization of the nature of existence without parts, attributes, or dimensions. It's very difficult for the human mind to do because we experience thought through parts and attributes and dimensions, the submodalities, VAKOG. So imagine being able to experience reality without submodalities. Now you're getting to Kether. It's going to take a lot of training to get there. C. Joy says, I'm fasting too. Well, look at y'all. I'm trying to get like y'all. I fasted Sunday, but I'm working myself back up. I went through a phase of stress eating fast food every freaking day for way too long. So I'm only just now getting back on my stuff. Got myself a little belly and everything. But it's all good. Alligator says, how the hell do we get there? The three supernals, nature. Well, think about, you go there every night. You go there every night. There's a certain part of rest where you go into that dreamless sleep. And that's getting into the realm of Bria. That mental plane. Because here's the thing. The mental plane, when you start reaching the higher levels of the mental plane, it's above and beyond thought. It's the parameter and context of thought and belief. So to be able to establish thought, there has to be context and parameter for thought to exist within, which means that we're dealing with something that's beyond thought. Just like what she was saying earlier about how Hakma and Kether exist above and beyond manifestation because they cause manifestation to be what it is. Likewise, when we're going into the mental plane, we're dealing with the realm above thoughts because it's the mental plane that causes thought. And we experience that in the stage of dreamless sleep. So one of the skills to practice is learning how to remain aware in that state. That's what we do when we practice meditation. We practice what it's like to stay aware and to have existence without stimulation of the body or the mind, really. But the only way to experience Kether, Bina, or Hakma is through participation in their essential nature. Kether, pure being, is contacted when we win to realization of the nature of existence without any parts, attributes, or dimensions. When you're able to do that, you're able to touch on what Kether is. Buddhi, right? This experience is aptly called the Trance of Annihilation. And those who experience it walk with God and are not, for God has taken them. Therefore is the spiritual experience assigned to Kether that of divine union, of which it is said that those who experience it enter into the light and come not forth again. Ooh. Stuffed Dog says, when this happened to me in Texas in the meditation, I couldn't feel my body. I was completely numb. But I could move the body inhumanly fast. I couldn't stop sweating, and I couldn't be still. Number 20. In order to contact Hakma, we must experience the rush of cosmic energy in its pure form. We must experience the rush of the dynamic cosmic energy in its pure form. An energy so tremendous that mortal man is fused into disruption by it. It is recorded that when Semele, mother of Dionysus, saw Zeus, her divine lover, in his god form as the Thunderer, she was blasted and burnt and gave birth to her divine son prematurely. The spiritual experience assigned to Hakma is the vision of God face to face. And God, Jehovah, said to Moses, "Thou canst not look upon my face and live." Jehovah said, y'all can't see me. You can't see me. John Cena. 21. But although the sight of the Divine Father blasts mortals as with fire, the Divine Son comes familiarly among them and can be invoked by the appropriate rites. Bacchanalia in the case of the son of Zeus, and the Eucharist in the case of the son of Jehovah. Thus, we see that there is a lower form of manifestation which shows us the Father, but that this rite owes its validity solely to the fact that it derives its illuminating intelligence, its inner robe of glory, from the Father. Hakma. 22. The grade of initiation corresponding to Hakma is said to be that of Magus, and the magical weapons assigned to that grade are the phallus and the inner robe of glory. See joy, good luck, and much strength to you on your fast. It's a wonderful experience, and I can't wait to see what you are able to pull out of that experience. Cannot wait. All right. So the grade of initiation corresponding to Hakma is said to be that of Magus, and the magical weapons assigned to that grade are the phallus and the inner robe of glory. This teaches us that these symbols have a microcosmic or psychological significance, as well as a macrocosmic or mystical one. The inner robe of glory must surely signify the inner light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. The spiritual vision, whereby the mystic discerns spiritual things, the subjective form of the illuminating intelligence referred to in the Yetzeratic text. 23. The phallus or lingam is given as one of the magical weapons of the initiate operating the grade of Hakma. This tells us that a knowledge of the spiritual significance of sex and the cosmic significance of polarity concern this grade. Anyone who can see beneath the surface and things mystical and magical cannot fail to be aware of the fact that in the understanding of the tremendous and mysterious potency, which we call sex in one of its manifestations, lies the key to a very great deal. It is not for nothing that sexual imagery pervades the visions of the seer from the Song of Songs to the interior castle. Can you imagine being able to use sex and sexuality as a tool? To be able to use the phallus as a magic wand? Who would ever conceive of such a thing? I mean, why? Why, at the grade of Magus, would they say that the magical weapon would be a phallus, a lingam? Crazy, right? Or not. Maybe not crazy at all. 24. It must not be thought from this that I advocate orgiastic rites as the way of initiation. But I may as well say plainly that without the right understanding of esoteric aspects of sex, the path is a blind alley. Freud spoke the truth to this generation when he pointed to sex as a key to psychopathology. He erred, in my opinion, when he made it the only key to the nine-chambered soul of man, as there can be no health of subconsciousness without harmony of sex life. So there can be no positive or dynamic working upon the plane of superconsciousness unless the laws of polarity are understood and observed. To many mystics, seeking refuge from matter in spirit, this may be a hard saying, but experience will prove it a true one. Therefore it must be said, though there may be few thanks for saying it. She said that there can be no health of subconsciousness without harmony of sex life. I didn't highlight that the first time, but I did this time. There can be no health of subconsciousness without harmony of sex life. And there can be no positive or dynamic working upon the plane of superconsciousness unless the laws of polarity are understood and observed. And it is easy to see if you just look outside or on the internet that it seems that most people do not have a good understanding of the laws of polarity. As a matter of fact, they seem quite confused and very loud about their confusion. And it's no mystery that these people are quite ineffective in what they seek to do. Swinging that iron. That is a funny thing. That's a funny phrase. Man. Sexual euphemisms. Rack 'em. Rack bar. Poison ivy. Poison ivy. She crazy as a daisy. Bomb, bomb, bomb. She come on like a rose. Bum, bum, bum. You can look, but you better not touch. Poison ivy. Poison ivy. You can look, but you better not touch. 25. The tremendous downrush of the Hakma force invoked through the divine four-lettered name comes from the macrocosmic yod to the microcosmic yod and is then sublimated. Unless the subconscious mind is free from dissociations and repressions, and all the parts of the many-sided nature of man are coordinated and synchronized, reactions and pathological symptoms are the results of that downrush. Now, who among thee thinks that it is a good idea to skip shadow work? Who among thee thinks that they are immune and exempt from making sure that their inner structure is organized, right? And how many people want to jump straight to the juicy details of summoning demons and spirits and how to do this, that, and a third? I highlighted it for a reason. She says, unless the subconscious mind is free from what? Dissociations, which means the shit that you're running from every time you jump in the car and turn up the radio loud or start up the small talk asking about, have you tried the lasagna? Did you see the game last night? How's the weather out there? Right? Unless the subconscious mind is free from the dissociations and the repressions, which are all the natural feelings that you have, but you fight against them because somebody told you they were wrong, right? And that's, like I said, if you're not doing shadow work, you definitely have disassociations and repressions. I don't have to know you. I know the human nature. I know the human context. And the human context says you're dissociated and you're repressing stuff. So unless you're addressing those two things implicitly, right? Unless the subconscious mind is free from dissociations and repressions, and all the parts of the many-sided nature of man are coordinated and synchronized. You see me make these videos about manifestation. All the levels have to be in alignment. I'm not just spitting out buzzwords. All the parts of the many-sided nature of man must be coordinated and synchronized. Unless you do all that, unless you're in order, and you're not running from stuff and you're not trying to hide stuff about yourself from yourself, all your reactions and pathological symptoms are the result of that downrush. So you're going to be triggered and you're going to be out here doing stuff that might be considered a little bit off. Because this downrush of force, which we're all receiving, by the way, but especially those of us who interact with magic and methods, we're receiving this downrush of force, and the downrush of force, it's flowing down through channels. And if any of these channels are blocked or tangled up or wired incorrectly, that force that could be the creation of a perfect reality ends up creating an imperfect reality. And you've experienced this all your life. This is not nothing new or nothing to look out for. This is what's happening. This is reality. That's why when you do start shadow work and you do start working on yourself, paying attention to yourself and harmonizing yourself, you'll start to notice that life gets better. You've been pulling down some high quality energy anyways. But you'll notice that once you start to fix yourself, you're going to start producing beauty that you've never seen. This does not mean that the invoker of Zeus is necessarily a worshiper of Priapus, but it does mean that no man can sublimate a dissociation. You cannot sublimate a dissociation, mainly because you're running from it. When the channel is free from obstructions, the downrushing force can swing round the nadir and become an uprushing force, which can be directed to any sphere, turned into any channel that is desired. But like it or not, it will be a downrushing force before it is an uprushing one. And unless our feet are firmly planted on elemental earth, we shall be like bursting wineskins. That's a good one right there. That's a good one right there. Jatoria Morris says Dion Fortune has Jupiter Shravana. Interesting. 26. Every practical occultist knows that Freud has spoken the truth, even though it is not the whole truth. But they're afraid to say so for fear of being accused of phallic worship and orgiastic practices. These things have their place, though it is not in the temple of the Holy Spirit. And to deny them their place is a folly for which the Victorian age paid dearly in a rich harvest of psychopathology. Look, you can go out there and swing as much iron as you want, but be clear to not fool yourself and delude yourself and try to make it some type of spiritual practice, because that's not what time it is. There is a place for everything. And sometimes the place is not in your life. Maybe that place is in somebody else's life. But there's a place for everything. You can't go out here and say such and such a thing should be banned from humanity. No. Everything must be done by somebody now. Even if you don't like it, even if you don't agree with it, there are certain things that must express themselves. Maybe not you in your life. Maybe not all the time. And hell, maybe once in a couple of decades. But don't get it twisted, and don't try to confuse things and put labels on things that you know deep down don't belong. Personally, I like to leave the orgies to whatever porn company creates them. That's not really my thing. But I'm not going to sit here and say nobody should do it. Somebody should do it, just not me. But it wouldn't exist as an idea if it wasn't meant to be expressed by someone at some point in time. Shout out to West Coast Productions. Or GGG or whatever y'all like to watch. Personally, 1 or 2 is fine for me. Anything more than that is taken away from my study time. 27. Whenever we are working dynamically upon any plane, we are operating the right-hand pillar of the tree and derive our primary energy from the yod force of Hakma. In this connection, we must refer to the fact that the microcosmic correspondence of Hakma is given as the left side of the face. The macrocosmic and the microcosmic correspondences play an important part in the practical workings. The macrocosm, or the great man, is, of course, the universe itself. And the microcosm is the individual man. It is said that man is the only being that has a fourfold nature exactly corresponding in its levels to the cosmos. The angels lack the lower planes, and the animals lack the higher planes. 28. The references to the microcosm should not, of course, be taken crudely as representing the parts of the physical body. The references are to the aura and the functions of the magnetic currents in the aura, and it must always be borne in mind, as the Swami Vivekananda points out, name drop, that what is on the right side in the male is on the left side in the female. In addition to this, and by the way, Franz Barton said that too. In addition to this, it must be remembered that what is positive on the physical plane is negative on the astral plane. It is positive again on the mental plane and negative on the spiritual plane, as is indicated in the twining black and white serpents of the caduceus of Mercury. If this caduceus be placed upon the tree when the tree is marked off to represent the 4 worlds of the Kabbalists, a glyph is formed which reveals the workings of the law of polarity in relation to the planes. This is a very important glyph and yields a great deal to meditation. If you have the Kabbalistic Tarot by Robert Wang, you'll see a picture of that. If you flip through the pages, close to like page 50, 60, 70, 80, something like that. Key point. Don't ever forget this. What's positive on the physical plane is negative on the astral plane. It's positive again on the mental plane and negative on the spiritual plane. Dion, is that a typo? Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. What you're putting out in the physical plane, you're actually pulling in the astral. But again, it's pushing it forth in the mental plane, but pulling in the spiritual plane. Phoenix Rise. Welcome, welcome. Peace, peace. So again, what's positive on the physical plane is negative on the astral plane. It's positive again on the mental plane and negative on the spiritual plane. That's one of the things that the caduceus represents with the black and white serpent spinning around the staff. But that's also what your chakras represent with the Ida and Pingala stream of energy flowing back and forth, back and forth. Guess what? Even the chakras follow this law of, let's say, for example, Muladhara is going to be receptive and negative, but Swadhisthana is going to be masculine to Muladhara simply because it's above it. But Swadhisthana is going to be feminine to Manipura. You see how that works? It's all about relationships. Okay, so 29. From this we learn that when the soul is in a female incarnation, it will function negatively in Asaya and Bria, but positively in Yetzera and Atziluth. In other words, a woman is physically and mentally negative, but psychically and spiritually positive. And the reverse holds good for a man. Please remember that. That's important. Get it. Get it. See, on the physical plane, a woman is negative, meaning that on the physical plane, she's receptive. On the physical plane, a man is positive, meaning that he's always giving. But check this out. On the astral plane, a woman is masculine. On the astral plane, a man is feminine. So while physically, a woman is trying to attract a man, astrally, a man is trying to attract a woman. And so on and so forth. It's not just about attraction. There's all kind of other scenarios where this is going to come into play. There's a lot that a woman does that influences a man that a man is typically not going to be able to observe. And likewise, there's a lot of things that men do towards women that women will never be able to observe because they're not programmed that way. They're not designed that way. In initiates, however, there is a considerable degree of compensation, for each learns the technique of both positive and negative psychic methods. The divine spark, which is the nucleus of every living soul, is, of course, bisexual, containing the roots of both aspects, as does Kether, to which it corresponds. In the more highly evolved souls, the compensating aspect is developed in some degree at least. The purely female woman and the purely male man prove to be oversexed as judged by civilized standards, and can only find an appropriate place in primitive societies, where fertility is the primary demand that society makes upon its woman, and hunting and fighting are the constant occupation of the men. So just because you come into the world this way doesn't mean that that's how you have to leave. As a matter of fact, as an occultist and somebody who's working to achieve spiritual perfection, it's going to serve you best to learn how to neutralize the polarity by coming to an equilibrium on the physical plane, on the astral plane, on the mental plane, and on the spiritual plane. Equilibrium is the goal, not extreme polarity. Phoenix Rise says, oh, like how men are deemed to be logical and women are deemed to be emotional. Absolutely. Absolutely. And to even go further, what I would say is that both men and women are emotional and logical, but when it comes to the decision-making process, typically women are going to go with how they feel, and men are going to go with what they think. But what women think are based on how they feel, and what men feel is based on what they think. That has everything to do with what she talked about here in the first two sentences of verse 29. Verse 30. This does not mean, however, that the physical functions of the sexes are perverted in the initiate, or that the configuration of the body is modified. What? So you're saying, Dion Fortune, that I don't need to take this androgynous aspect literally? Are you telling me that this is actually something that is deeper than just the physical vessel? Well, go figure. So I can't use this I can't use the excuse of spirituality. Let's go over that again. This does not mean, however, that the physical functions of the sexes are perverted in the initiate, or that the configuration of the body is modified. Esoteric science teaches that the physical form and racial type, which the soul assumes in each incarnation, are determined by destiny or karma, and that the life has to be worked out and lived accordingly. Uh-oh, look at what's highlighted. Some people said I was riding with you, Trav, up until this point. I agree with everything you said, but when you said this, I disagree because my feelings piped up and my logic was suspended. Dion says, it is inadvisable for us to play tricks with our type, racial or physical, and we should always accept it as the basis of our operations and choose our methods accordingly. There are certain operations and certain offices in the lodge for which a male vehicle is more suitable than a female. And when practical work is on hand, the officers in a ceremony are selected on type. But when the routine training of an initiate is in progress, it is the custom to let everyone take turns at the different offices in order that they may learn to handle the different types of force and become equilibrated. Let's keep going because it continues to be spicy. 31. Benjamin Kidd, in his very stimulating book, stimulating because we're talking about Hakma, right? The stimulating force. Benjamin Kidd, in his very stimulating book, The Science of Power, points out that the highest type of human being approximates to the infantile. We observe the enormous relative size of the head as compared with the body weight in the infant, and that the secondary sexual characteristics are not present. We find the same tendency appearing in a modified form in the civilized adult. The highest type of man is not a hirsute gorilla, not a hairy gorilla, nor is the highest type of woman an exaggerated mammal. Notice how society is going backwards. The tendency of evolution and civilization is to an approximation of type between the sexes, so far as the secondary sexual characteristics are concerned. And you guys know what the secondary sexual characteristics are, right? Secondary meaning that the primary sexual characteristics are penis and vagina. Everything else that we identify masculine and feminine with are secondary, right? So they're going to be varied. Every male has a penis and every female has a vagina. But then there's the secondary characteristics which vary, right? Breast and breast size, or hips, or square shoulders and jaw and hairy chin, beard, hair, and all that other stuff. And the way that the muscles develop. These things are secondary sexual characteristics, and they can easily be manipulated with chemicals. Easily. The tendency of evolution and civilization is to an approximation of type between the sexes, so far as the secondary sexual characteristics are concerned. What percentage of city-dwelling males could grow a really patriarchal beard? The primary sexual character, however, must be maintained unimpaired, or the race speedily dies out. And we have no reason to believe that this is the case even among our most epicene moderns, who fill the divorce courts with abundant evidence of their overflowing philoprogenitiveness. 32. These things we can understand in the light that is thrown on them when they are placed upon the tree. The two pillars, the positive under Hakma and the negative under Bina, correspond respectively to the Ida and Pingala of the yoga systems. These two magnetic currents running in the aura, parallel to the spine, are called the sun and moon currents. In a male incarnation, we work predominantly with the sun current, the fertilizer. In a female incarnation, we work predominantly with the moon forces. If we desire to work with the opposite type of force to that which we are naturally endowed, we have to do so by using our natural mode as the basis of operations and, as it were, cannoning off the cushion. The male who wants to use the moon forces employs devices that enable him to get his natural sun force reflected. And the female who wants to use the sun forces employs a device whereby she is enabled to focus them upon herself and reflect them. On the physical plane, the sexes mate, and the man begets a child upon the woman, thus availing himself of her moon powers. The woman, on the other hand, desiring creation and unable to compass it single-handed, entices the male through his desires till he bestows upon her his sun force, and she is impregnated. There's massive game just dropped in that verse, and I know most people won't get it, but she's not saying that a man cannot work with female energy and a female cannot work with masculine energy. She's not saying that. What she's saying is use what you have to your advantage. If you're a male, if you've been incarnated into a male body, if you want to use the feminine force, that means you need to employ certain symbolic tools to push your sun force onto and allow those devices to reflect as the moon does. And if you're a woman, you want to employ devices that can allow you to become reflected upon, right? It's almost like you impregnate yourself. This is how you become self-generative. In a way, you have to create your own feminine or your own masculine so that you can reproduce with yourself. And I don't mean physically. But that's for another time. (33) In magical workings, the man or woman who desires to work with the opposite type of force to that of their physical vehicle and it is part of the routine of occult training that they should do so, shifts the level of consciousness onto a plane on which they find themselves of the requisite polarity and works thereon. The priests of Osiris sometimes employs the elemental spirits to supplement his polarity, and the priestess of Isis invokes angelic influences. Imagine the male wizard, the priest of Osiris, creating elemental spirits or servitors to become his feminine, which he then impregnates, and which then go out to produce what he needs. And imagine the female priestess of Isis pulling down angelic force to impregnate her so that she has what she needs. It's a science to this, very ancient science, and it wasn't made up last year, last decade, or last century. You gotta have a certain kind of mind to understand this. And popular culture does not have that mind. Give me one of them. 34. Because manifestation takes place through the pairs of opposites, the principle of polarity is implicit not only in the macrocosm, but also in the microcosm. By understanding it and knowing how to avail ourselves of the potentialities it affords, we can raise our natural powers far above their normal. We can use our environment as a thrust block. We can look for the potent Hakma force in books, in our racial tradition, in our religion, in our friends and associates. From all these, we can receive the stimulus that fecundates us and makes us creative mentally, emotionally, and dynamically. We make our environment play Hakma to our Bina. Equally, we can play Hakma to its Bina. Do y'all see what she's saying here? A few of y'all do. Upon the subtle planes, polarity is not fixed, but it is relative. And if you can understand this stuff right here, now this is easy to me. I've been doing this for a very long time. But if you could just wrap your head around and make sense that when we talk about gender, it's not penis and vagina. We're talking about impregnating and developing what has been impregnated. Right? Impregnating and giving birth. If you can realize what it is that you're trying to do and realize where you stand as your foundation, like what you actually are, what you have to work with, the next step is to figure out the corresponding part that you need and working with it, dancing with it, playing with it. See, we're talking about context, not content. We're talking about context, not content. So it doesn't matter what color candle you use. It doesn't matter if you use a candle. What matters is the context of your using the candle. What's the point? What are you doing? That which is more forceful than ourselves is positive towards us and renders us negative towards itself. That which is less forceful than we are in any given aspect is negative towards us, and we can assume the positive role towards it. This fluidic, ever-fluctuating subtle polarity is one of the most important points in the practical workings. If we understand it and avail ourselves of it, we can do some very remarkable things and put our lives and our relations with our environment on an altogether different basis. So this goes without saying, the Magus is the masculine to their reality. Your reality should be your divine feminine. And don't it make sense? If your reality is your divine feminine, Purusha to Prakriti, doesn't matter what gender you call yourself. You are the masculine to the feminine reality. Prakriti, that's why I keep saying she. That's why Prakriti is seen as a female. You become the sorcerer, right? To the substance. You give it shape. You give it purpose. If your external environment gives you purpose, you're not doing it right. If your external environment defines you and tells you what to do and decides what you can and cannot do, you're not operating from the realm of the mages. The symbiote is controlling you. Always be leading. But they ain't hearing me though. Somebody heard me, but not everybody. Somebody heard it. That's why the magician sits at that table with all the tools at his disposal. That represents this very same thing I have here. That's why I have this. That's why I have this. I'm building a whole council of these little objects here that I just showed. This stuff works, man. This stuff really, really, really works. And I'm so happy that that company makes the figures that it makes. Because I'm using the hell out of these things. And notice what she also said. Look at this now. She says that which is more forceful than ourselves is positive towards us and renders us negative towards itself. So you know what else I do? I create for myself teachers that are more forceful for myself to teach me the things that I don't know. I'm not so ignorant to sit up here and believe that I know it all and I got it all figured out. I need to know the things I don't know. So I have to create teachers for myself. I got to create teachers for myself to show me the things that I don't know. It's not just about, I'm going to create servitors to go out and get me money and hurt the people that hurt me. No. You create these things to unlock your potential. You use these things as symbols to access parts of yourself that you don't know how to access any other way. And by the way, this is what I mean when I'm creating a course about servitors and goetic legions. After the shadow work course, the next course that I'm going to be teaching stuff on is about how to work with these servitors and the legions of the Goetia. And I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to have like a group of people that I'm going to work with for about a month before the course comes out, so we can get like a before and after, like, you know, real live proof of what they're doing and how they're doing it. So it's not just me talking. You're going to be able to see like regular people work with this stuff. A couple of y'all in the chat, I'm going to ask if you want to be a part of that. But yeah, man, we're about to get into the Goetia. Just like I said, just like I promised. After this shadow work stuff, we're going back into the spooky stuff. But all in due time. I'm just very excited about it right now. So, oh yeah. Phoenix Rise says, so you give those figures your feminine. Exactly. Specifically, that's why I chose that Doctor Strange Venom combination, because the symbiote, right, it becomes what you want it to be. Doctor Strange represents the magician, the Purusha, and the Prakriti together as one. But in any case, yeah, it doesn't have to be a damn toy. It could be anything. It could be a pen. But the important thing is that you've programmed within yourself to see the item for what it is that you want to see and allow it to do what you've assigned it to do. It becomes your feminine. And together you produce the combination of your masculine force and her feminine force. It produces something that's greater than its parts. I love this stuff, man. I love this stuff. MC Maestro says, like Bobby said, use the lower to lift yourself to the higher. And like the Gabalion said too, right? MC Maestro says 2016 Trav revisited. Everything comes around full circle, man. MC Maestro says we haven't seen 2016 Trav since he went looking for the Darkhold. Yeah, man.
Just like Goku goes through different teachers every season, right? From Master Yoshi to now Beerus and Wiz. It's important for all of us to continue learning and to continue having teachers. You don't just have a Yoda and that's it. You keep learning. And if you can't find a teacher, make one. Make one. All right, let's get back to this because I got some chicken Alfredo waiting outside. And I bought myself a tube of wasabi. And holy shit, it makes my nose run and my eyes water. It's so spicy and I love it. I'm going to try not to put too much wasabi in this chicken Alfredo. Look, man, I love me some spicy stuff. I'll make some food just to put hot sauce on it. And I'm not talking about no Louisiana Red Hot. Texas Pete. I love me some quality ghost pepper shit. Something about that eye-watering burn is an incredible feeling. But not just the burn itself, the flavor of those peppers, man. I just love it. But anyways, let's get back to what we're talking about. 35. $35. Hall of Judah says, isn't wasabi fucking great? Spicy vinegar don't count. Thank you. Horseradish, sriracha on everything. I love it, man. I love it. Society Eject says, LOL, I just got ghost pepper and blueberry from Bravado Spice Co. Hey, man, if you can send me a link on Instagram, like, I am passionately seeking different hot sauces. Because I'm looking for something that is just the right amount of spicy, but also flavorful. Like, oh, here we go, MC Maestro. Now you're making fun of my pronunciations, right? Sriracha. Look, I've never heard anyone pronounce it, so I'm just going off of what it phonetically looks like to me. Hecate Goddess says, Alfredo teaching you flavors. I can work with that. Stuff Dog says, who makes those figures? Take a look at the screen. See that? Sriracha, because we American. Phoenix Rise says, I'm interested. I need to get over the spooky. All right. I will keep you in mind because I do legit want to get a group of people and work this system through just to make sure it works and then put it on the table for everyone else. But again, more on that later. 35. We must learn to know when we can function as Hakma and beget deeds upon the world, and when we had best function as Bina and make our environment fertilize us so that we become productive. Look, man, I make my environment fertilize me. It's got to be that way. We must never forget that self-fertilization involves sterility in a few generations, and that we must ever and again be fertilized by the medium in which we are working. There must be an interplay of polarity between us and whatever we have set out to do, and we must always be on the alert to find polarizing influences, whether in tradition or in books, or in fellow workers in the same field, or even in the very opposition and antagonism of enemies. For there is just as much polarizing force in a hearty hatred as there is in love, if we know how to use it. We must have stimulus if we are to create anything, even a useful life well lived. Hakma is the cosmic stimulus. Whatever stimulates is assigned to Hakma in the classification of the tree. All right, y'all, right there. Right there. I need you to understand, if you're confused and don't know what the Hakma force is, that sentence gives it all. Whatever stimulates is assigned to Hakma in the classification of the tree. It's not necessarily a man or a standing rock or swinging iron. Whatever stimulates is Hakma. So it's not the content, it's the context of stimulation. Get it? So when you're trying to understand the tree of life, and you're trying to understand what is divine masculine, it's not a man who does things that makes you think divine masculine. No, divine masculine is whatever force stimulates. Whatever force stimulates, that is what the divine masculine is. Whatever force stimulates, period. Anything added on to that is someone's agenda. This is the raw root level. We gotta break it down to a slits malt liquor level. The raw root level of divine masculine and Hakma is that which stimulates. Now you can translate that across every species, every dimension of anything. That which stimulates is the divine masculine, is the Hakma force. All right? All right, so we got that out of the way. Sedatives are assigned to Bina. We shall obtain further insight into this principle of cosmic polarity as we study Bina, the third Sephirah, for it is hardly possible to understand the implications of Hakma without reference to its polarizing opposite, with which it always functions. We will therefore carry no further our study of polarity at the present time, but conclude our examination of Hakma by reference to the cards attributed to it in the tarot pack, and resume our research into this most significant subject when Bina has afforded us further data. But on 144 Magnolia Street, I saw through the window of that house. It was in white robes. Peace and greetings to everyone who joined the chat and hasn't said anything yet. Listen, like the video, especially if you like the video. If you like what you're hearing and seeing and learning, hit the like button. Because not only does it feel good when you like my video, it also helps YouTube categorize my videos in the category of videos that should be watched. So hit the like button. It's free, and it makes you feel just as good as it makes me feel. It was in white robes. Holy shit. We didn't deserve Willie. We didn't deserve him. Y'all don't understand, man. I literally watch that video like almost every day, and it is still hilarious to me. All right, let's keep going. Rack 'em, rack bar. Rack 'em, rack bar. 36. As was noted in the chapter upon Kether, the 4 suits of the tarot pack are assigned to the 4 elements. And we saw that the 4 aces represented the roots of the powers of those elements. The 4 twos are assigned to Hakma and represent the polarized functioning of these elements in harmonized balance. Therefore, a 2 is always a card of harmony. A 2 is always a card of harmony. Poison Ivy! 37. The 2 of Wands. Fire. The 2 of Wands, which is assigned to the element of fire, is called the Lord of Dominion. The wand is essentially a male phallic symbol and is attributed to Hakma. So we may take this card as meaning polarization. the positive that has found its mate in the negative and is in equilibrium. There is no antagonism or resistance to the Lord of Dominion, but a contented land accepts his rule. Binah fulfilled accepts her mate. Powerful card to work with. Two of Wands. The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities, some considered to be unnatural. $37. The Two of Wands. We just read that. $38. The Two of Cups. Water is called the Lord of Love. And here again, we have the concept of harmonious polarization. $39. The Two of Swords, air, is called the Lord of Peace Restored, indicating that the disruptive force of swords is in temporary equilibrium. Number 40. The Two of Pentacles, earth, is called the Lord of Harmonious Change. Here, as in swords, we see a modification of the essential nature of the elemental force by its polarizing opposite, thus inducing equilibrium. The disruptive force of swords is restored to peace, and the inertia and resistance of earth becomes, when polarized by the influence of Hakma, a balanced rhythm. $41. These four cards indicate the Hakma force in polarity, that is to say, the essential balance of power as it manifests in the four worlds of the Kabbalists. When they appear in a divination, they indicate power in equilibrium. They do not indicate a dynamic force, as might be expected, where Hakma is concerned. Because Hakma, being one of the supernals, its force is positive upon the subtle planes and consequently negative upon the planes of form. The negative aspect of a dynamic force is represented by equilibrium, polarity. The negative aspect of a negative potency is represented by destruction, as is shown in the glyph of Kali, the terrible wife of Shiva, girdled with skulls and dancing upon the body of her husband. So check that out. The negative aspect of a dynamic force is represented by equilibrium, polarity. The negative aspect of a negative force is represented by destruction. So negative positive is balance. A negative negative is destruction. So we could say a positive positive is creation. And there you have the three gunas. You're welcome. 42. This concept gives us a key to another of the many problems of the tree, the relative polarity of the Sephiroth. As has previously been explained, each Sephirah is negative in its relation with those above it, from which it receives the influx of emanations, and positive in relation to those beneath it, which proceed from it, and to which therefore acts as an emanator. And we did go over that, right? Certain of the paired Sephiroth are, however, more definitely positive or more definitely negative in their nature. For instance, Hakma is a positive positive, and Binah is a positive negative. Chesed is a negative positive, and Gibra is a negative negative. Netzach, Venus, and Hod, Mercury, are said to be hermaphroditic. Yesod, Luna, is a positive negative. And Malkuth, Earth, is a negative negative. Neither Kether nor Tifereth are predominantly male or female. In Kether, the pairs of opposites are latent and have not yet declared themselves. In Tifereth, they are in perfect equilibrium. Peace, Mariah Magdalene. Have a good evening. (43) There are two ways in which transmutation can be affected on the tree. And these are indicated by two of the glyphs, which are superimposed upon the Sephiroth. One of these is the glyphs of the tree of the three pillars, and the other is the glyph of the lightning flash. The pillars have been already described. The lightning flash simply indicates the order of emanation of the Sephiroth, zigzagging from Hakma to Bina and from Bina to Chesed, backwards and forwards across the tree. If transmutation takes place according to the lightning flash, the force changes its type. If, according to the pillars, it remains the same type, but on a higher or lower arc, as the case may be. So basically what she's saying is, if you follow the tree, there's pretty much two different ways to look at the evolution happening on the tree. And if you're going from Kether to Hakma to Bina to Chesed to Gibra to Tifereth to Netzach to Had to Yesod to Malkuth, if you're going like that in the zigzag pattern, what you're doing is you're changing from force to form, right? The force you're dealing with changes its type from one type to another type, one type to another type. And that's what most of us are familiar with. But if you look at the tree in terms of the pillars, right, where you got like Bina, Gibra, Had, Kether, Doth, Tifereth, Yesod, Malkuth, and then Hakma, Chesed, Netzach, it's the same type, right? It's the same type, but you're dealing with a higher, medium, and lower arc, right? So the left-hand pillar is the same type, but on different levels, different degrees, right? Framestar Film says, chromosomes, just woke up again. Peace. (44) This sounds very complex and abstract, but examples will soon serve to show it to be simple and practical when understood. Take the problem of the sublimation of sex force, which besets the psychotherapists, concerning which they talk so glibly and say so little, and Malkuth, which in the microcosm is the physical body. Sex force is in terms of ovum and spermatozoum. In Yesod, which is the etheric double, right? Because she's talking about how the sex force displays itself in all these different Sephiroth. She said that Yesod, which is the etheric double, it is in terms of magnetic force, concerning which nothing is known to orthodox psychology, but concerning which we shall have a good deal to say under the heading of the appropriate Sephiroth. So look, she's talking about how the sex force appears within each of the spheres, all right? So pay attention. We know for a fact that in Malkuth, the sex force appears as sperm and egg. In Yesod, in the etheric plane, the sex force is displayed as magnetism, right? She says that Had and Netzach are on the astral plane. So boom, I didn't make this up. This is where I got it from. She said that Had and Netzach are on the astral plane. And in Had, we find, and by the way, what was before the astral plane? She said the etheric double. Again, I didn't make this stuff up. Now, the etheric plane is a part of the physical plane, but it's also a part of the astral plane. All the planes have an in-between state. But anyways, Had and Netzach are on the astral plane. And in Had, we find that the sex force is expressed in visual images. And in Netzach, and another and altogether subtler type of magnetism, popularly referred to as it. Right? It. You guys know that some people just have it, some people don't. Some things have it and some don't. You can have 2, 3 people talking about the same subject, but that one that has it, you don't even care about the other 2. You just want to hear what's going on with the main one. That's the sex force on the astral realm of Netzach. Now, the sex force displays itself in the Hod realm as images. Why? We're not talking about sexual images, right? Gotta think with an expanded mind. What we mean is that the astral plane is the plane of emotion. So what causes emotion? Images. When you see yourself winning what you've worked so hard to achieve, you're going to get an emotion out of that. When you see yourself failing, you're going to get an emotion out of that. That's the sex force on the astral plane. So depending on the type of images that you create and surround yourself with and constantly refer to, it produces your moods. It gives birth to your daily emotional state. So if you're somebody who walks around proud of themselves, encouraged, a go-getter, ready to tackle the world, I'd like for you to consider the type of images you feed yourself to feel that way. And I want you to understand that that's what's happening on the astral plane. That's the astral plane. Not floating around trying to have sex with people. The astral plane is the type of images and concepts that change your mood. You feel what I'm saying? That's what the astral plane. The images that you feed yourself to enhance, influence, and alter your mood. And that's the sex force on the astral plane. Not floating to somebody and imagining having sex with them. I know that's what everybody talks about on Facebook and stuff. But rest assured, I promise I'll put something valuable on it. These people don't know what they're talking about. Let's continue. In Tifereth, the Christ center, the force becomes spiritual inspiration, illumination, the influx from the higher consciousness. Right? If it is positive in type, it becomes the Dionysic inspiration, a divine inebriation. You become divinely high or divinely drunk, right? If it is negative, it becomes the impersonal, all-harmonizing Christ love. And that can manifest itself as you being very patient with people, listening to people, giving them an opportunity to unload so that they can rise higher. Right? So she just broke down how the sex force actually works on those lower planes. Physical plane, the etheric plane, the astral plane, and the mental plane. Right? That's how it actually works. So the sex force in the higher planes has nothing to do with a penis into a vagina or any other hole. That's not that's only on the physical plane. That's it. That's it. Now in the etheric plane, we can talk about the magnetism that might attract such a thing. And on the astral plane, like I said, we're dealing with the images and which one of those images does it for you, right? And then on the mental plane, we're talking about this spiritual inspiration, spiritual illumination, an influx, a download, right? And it can even cause you to be spiritually intoxicated. Or on the negative side, it just becomes an impersonal, all harmonizing Christ love. You just arms wide open, accepting life as it is. Uh-oh. Society Eject says, yo, and imagine the imagery, what people thinking about when they practice sex. And imagine if both the partners is Malkuth driven. Right. Right. Framestar Film says plucking the emerald from Lucifer's crown. Vert? Plucking the emerald from Lucifer's crown, or drinking the wine from the grapes of wrath. $45. When the transmutation is worked upon the pillars, we are impressed by the truth of the ironical French phrase, plus ka change, plus c'est la même chose. I don't speak French, so. Hakma, pure dynamism, pure stimulus, without formed expression. Pure dynamism, pure stimulus, without formed expression. Dion Fortune talked about how God was pressure. Pressure, that's it. Not a man, not a woman, not a beast or being, but straight up pressure. And in chesed, right, Hakma, pure dynamism, pure stimulus without formed expression. In chesed, which is the sphere right below Hakma, right, the pure dynamism and pure stimulus without formed expression in chesed becomes the upbuilding, organizing aspect of evolution. Anabolism, as distinguished from the catabolism of Gibera. In chesed, the Hakma force becomes that peculiarly subtle form of magnetism which gives power of leadership and is the root of greatness. Equally, on the left-hand pillar, the force restraining Bina becomes the form destroying Gibera, and again, the maker of magical images, Mercury, Hermes, and Thoth. Interesting to note that the Mercury, Hermes, and Thoth in your life will lead you to break down your illusion using the very forms that you seek to break down. So your Yoda, your guru, your teacher helps you to break down your illusion using the illusion itself. And that is a form of the destruction of Gibera. Going back into the womb so that you can be unborn, basically. Ultimately, that's what your guru is supposed to help you do. Go back into the womb so that you can become unborn. Because the mother is the giver of death. So you have to die in order to be born. Or unborn, I should say. Or even bornless. I invoke thee, the bornless one. Kalamata Olive. Oh no, just one more verse. Now it's time for so long. But we'll sing just one more song. Thanks for doing your part. You sure are smart, you know, with me and you and my dog Blue, we can do anything that we wanna do. Bye bye. Your guru is not here to build a cult of worship. Your guru is here to help you become bornless. And if you love life, you might not want to fuck around with spirituality. $46. From time to time, the symbols of occult science have leaked out into popular knowledge, but the uninitiated have not understood the method of arranging these symbols in their patterns as the tree, nor of applying to them the alchemical principles of transmutation and distillation, wherein lie the real secrets of their use. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So that's that. Yet another exciting episode of the Mystical Qabalah. As always, I learned something. What did you learn? What's something that you picked up? If nothing else, you learned what Priapus was. The god of the giant iron. Swinging iron. I remember an older dude said to me something about swinging that hammer. I found that hilarious because I didn't know what he was talking about until I did. Out there swinging that hammer. Oh man, why does it have to be swinging? Funny business, man. Datoria Morris says, definitely reading Dion Chapter tonight. Awesome. Go forth. Go forth. And honestly, it's probably best that way, to read about the masculine and then the feminine. MC Maestro says, I was doing the Bornless ritual in college while my peers got booty. That must be why I got hella spirit and no hoes. Hey man, life is not over. If it's hoes you want, you still got plenty of time. Plenty of time. Tony Martinez, Mr. Think Outside the Box. Peace. Tony Martinez says, Christ died for sin, death. If you see the Son, you've seen the Father, life. If you've seen Tifereth, you've pretty much seen Kether. Alligator says, the Bornless one. Shit spooked me when I first heard that. Yeah. Hikate says, I understood the concept of female male. Awesome. Petty Midnight Gospel says, interworking energies of Hakma. Yeah, Micah says, know the flow of stimulating and being stimulated. Alligator says, it was confirmed tonight that Dion has all these yogi books talking about Swami Vivekananda, right? Framestar Film says, triangles make diamonds. Remember what she said about working with the masculine and the feminine energies, right? The moon force and the sun force. The sun gives, the moon reflects. If you are incarnated into a male body, then use your environment to be your moon so that it reflects what you give. And if you're born into a female body, use your environment to become your sun, to impregnate you so that you can give birth to what it is that you want. Gerald Sombright says Hakma force is a form of buddhi. Exactly. Keep in mind, like I said before, the crown chakra is above and beyond the physical vessel. Likewise, Kether and Hakma are above and beyond the physical vessel. It is Kether and Hakma that are what we know of as buddhi, and it stimulates Om to vibrate. And that vibration of Om creates everything else that we know. Tony Martinez says, sin from Eve, mother. Forgot to tie that in. Mother death and father life. Yes. So Christ died for our sins. Gotcha. Oh, goodness gracious. Chicken Alfredo waits for me. And I'm gonna put wasabi in it. And if I'm really feeling bold and courageous, I'm gonna add some of my XXX Yucatan habanero sauce. And I am legit making a workshop on how to create servitors using Funko Pop figures. I'm excited about that. I already got started. It's just on my heart to do. but I've never, ever, ever seen anyone talk about working with the Goetic legions. But enough of that. It's been a good day. Good day. Gerald Sombright says, peace, bro. Thanks for breaking this stuff down in your words. Helps a hell of a lot. My pleasure, my friend. My pleasure. Lola Cola, greetings. Lola Cola says, finally started doing ceremonial magic. Been doing the LBRP, middle pillar, and the Bornless Rite every day for the past few months. And I feel a huge difference. Started when I had a spiritual emergency. I'm glad you stuck with it. MC Maestro says, I remember the vid you did with the Black Tower talking about the legions. Yeah, man. I don't even know if they was ready for that kind of talk. Now it's time for so long. Stuff Dog says, Trav, is that a class, the Goetia? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Coming soon, after the shadow work class. And that was the original goal, right? I was gonna jump straight to Goetia, but I decided that shadow work was in order because yeah, man. Gotta have, like what she said on that one verse, the things that we are running from and the things that we are suppressing, if that stuff is not in order, then we can't really effectively do this type of work. Okie doke. All right, so we're out. Hope you guys had fun. I certainly did. This is the end of tonight's class. And I'll see you next time. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. We're gonna go over Bina. If not, then sometime this week for sure. This break has been excellent for me because it's allowing me the opportunity to really recharge and get myself in order and to see into the future. Like I said on my last live stream, I really forgot what energized me. And what energizes me is to study. I've been working so much in, the consultations that I actually stopped reading. And that's what really led to me feeling lower energy levels. But now, I'm getting back on it. I actually stayed up for 2 days like I usually used to do. So to me, that's a sign of that type of fire returning. But in any case, we'll be back soon. So, have a great day. Have a great day, a great night. Love you guys. Off to spicy chicken Alfredo. All right, so this is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you guys. Peace.